In a world where magic rules supreme, a young boy's wild dreams might just trigger a destiny far bigger than he ever imagined as he confidently declares himself a wizard. He boldly challenges his playmate, while the light-haired girl joyfully plays the role of a ferocious, wizard-eating monster. With absolute childish determination, the black-haired boy swings his makeshift wooden wand. Their playful battle takes a painful turn when the heavy wooden stick accidentally strikes the girl's head. She angrily protests the painful blow, but he smugly insists that monsters are destined to lose to wizards anyway. She loudly demands to switch roles so she can be the wizard, while Grandpa Rabus chuckles softly in the distance. Grandpa Rabus greets the energetic youngsters, who immediately shout back his name in sheer excitement. The curious boy asks how he can become a real wizard, but the elder gently begins to shatter his naive dreams. The elder explains that wizards represent the absolute peak of humanity, wielding supreme authority over all others. He reveals that this divine power is a sacred lineage strictly inherited by noble families and elite knights. Grandpa Rabus delivers the harsh truth to the children, prompting a light-hearted scolding from the young, dark-haired villager. The elder suddenly shifts the conversation, asking the young man to confirm a chilling rumor he heard. The anxious young villager asks if it is true that a terrifying beast has finally breached their borders. A heavy silence falls as the elder solemnly confirms the rumor, sending a wave of absolute dread through them. He shares that a villager named Rop had a terrifying close encounter with the beast just last night. The beast is described as a monstrous shadow leopard, a gargantuan creature as large as a house. The woman with the headscarf tightly hugs the frightened girl, reassuring her that the village chief has gone to summon a wizard. She anxiously prays for the wizard to arrive and slay the beast, offering a tense sense of comfort to the child. Placing a gentle hand on her head, she strictly forbids the young girl from wandering into the dangerous forest. Picking up the discarded toy stick, Grandpa Rabus warns that defeating such a beast without magic is completely impossible. The young villager asks if all the residents are aware of the threat, receiving a grim nod of confirmation. The elder's expression hardens as he suddenly remembers someone who might still be completely in the dark. The scene shifts away from the village to the quiet, rolling green hills of the outer pastures. High up on the peaceful mountainside, a fluffy white sheep rests undisturbed in the warm afternoon sun. This isolated pasture is the quiet sanctuary of the village's outcast shepherd, Tyrion. Tyrion lies lazily in the tall grass, using a large white sheep as a pillow alongside a sleeping dog. With silver-gray hair framing his face, Tyrion stares blankly at the sky with a piece of straw in his mouth. He sighs in frustration, deeply bored by the endless quiet monotony of his daily routine. Day after day, the exact same quiet scenery of grazing sheep stretches out before his eyes. It is a seemingly endless cycle of boredom, repeating the exact same quiet day over and over again. He jokingly worries that his complete lack of human contact will make him forget how to speak entirely. A shadow suddenly falls over him as a harsh voice rings out, calling him a pathetic brat. The intruder angrily scolds him for slacking off on his duties long before the sun has even started to set. Grandpa Rabus stands towering over the lazy young shepherd, leaning heavily on his wooden staff. Tyrion casually tells the old man to move because he is blocking the sun, making the elder scowl in irritation. Keeping his eyes closed, Tyrion asks if the elder is still bitter about their past conflict. He openly exposes how the elder tried to claim his sheep after his mother passed away, causing the old man to cough awkwardly. Tyrion sits up slightly, firmly stating he has no intention of sharing his mother's inheritance with anyone. Outraged, the elder screams at him to deliver his message and leave, completely losing his temper. Tyrion's relaxed and lazy expression instantly vanishes as he senses the sudden, genuine gravity in the elder's voice. He stands up to listen as Grandpa Rabus solemnly reveals that a terrifying monster has entered the area. Gently patting his sheep, Tyrion listens as the elder describes the house-sized shadow leopard spotted by Rope. Although Tyrion agrees it is a serious issue, he remains entirely unfazed, confusing the elder since the lone shepherd is the easiest target. Amazed by the youth's reckless courage, the elder tells him the chief went to hire a wizard and warns him to be careful. The old man claims he only came out of genuine concern, but Tyrion mockingly points out his lack of honesty. Tyrion teasingly suggests the elder only ran up here because he was worried about the sheep, not him, sparking another furious shout. With a smug, teasing grin, the silver-haired shepherd casually dismisses the old man once and for all. Tyrion delivers a hilariously savage insult about the elder's terrible breath to end the argument. As the furious elder stomps away in a huff, Tyrion smiles warmly and returns to petting his flock in peace. But as the silence of the pasture returns, his playful smile completely vanishes, his eyes sharpening as a dark, dormant secret prepares to unfold. In a world ruled by supreme magic, a dark truth is about to be unleashed. If humans have wizards, then beasts have monsters. Curious about the upcoming wizard's arrival, Tyrion walks through the grass, eager to finally witness real magic with his own eyes. Strolling with his flock, he doubts the caliber of any wizard willing to answer a backwater chief's call. Even so, his curiosity burns bright as he wonders just how powerful these legendary figures truly are. Suddenly, a sharp scent catches his attention, halting him mid-thought. His eyes widen in sudden shock as his senses register a highly alarming scent in the air. Standing tall against the blowing wind, he realizes the unmistakable metallic scent is the smell of fresh blood. The peaceful afternoon quickly darkens as a chilling breeze sweeps through the silent forest path. Turan cautiously steps forward, following the dark trail deeper into the woods. He presses onward, absolutely certain that the gruesome source lies just ahead. He abruptly freezes in his tracks as his worst fears materialize before him. Looking down with a grim expression, he stares at a horrifying sight on the forest floor. His breath catches as he identifies the lifeless body of the village elder, Rabus, lying in a pool of blood. He laments that the stubborn old man warned him to be careful, only to rush headfirst into his own demise. Examining the severe, jagged tears, he concludes that no normal wild predator could inflict such devastating wounds. The savage state of the remains leaves absolutely no doubt that the legendary monster is already here. Before he can process the tragedy, a sudden heavy vibration alerts him to immediate danger. A gargantuan, razor-sharp claw crashes onto the dirt, shaking the very ground beneath him. Emerging from the shadows, a colossal, glowing beast looms over the forest, radiating pure malice. The massive shadow leopard locks its burning yellow eyes directly onto the lone, defenseless shepherd. The terrifying sight begs the ultimate question of just how strong these mythical beasts truly are. Back in the village, a frightened young boy asks his father if the rumors of the beast's unbeatable power are true. His father grimly admits that normal humans would be completely obliterated in an instant. As the boy panics about the fate of their village, his father tells him not to lose hope just yet. He reassures his son that the chief is bringing a wizard who will easily subjugate the terrifying monster. The boy looks up, desperately seeking confirmation that the wizard will punish the beast and protect him. Smiling warmly, his father explains that wizards are divine beings born with the supreme gift of magic. He confidently declares that a wizard can slay such a monster with just a single spoken word. Meanwhile, deep in the dark woods, Turan stares calmly at the roaring beast, entirely unfazed by its presence. With a sudden, devastating shockwave, the beast is violently slammed to the ground. But the gargantuan creature merely snarls, its glowing, rocky armor instantly knitting back together. Revealing a mysterious crimson aura radiating from his body, Turan prepares to take matters into his own hands. He casually scratches his head, mildly annoyed that his lethal command failed to finish off the beast. The furious shadow leopard lunges forward, unleashing a devastating, explosive strike directly at him. Unflinching as the deadly claws close in, Turan calmly utters a single absolute command to halt the beast. A powerful force ripples through the air, instantly freezing the massive predator's lethal momentum. Realizing his magic only temporarily binds the relentless creature, he smiles, realizing he needs a different approach. With a deafening roar, the colossal monster forcefully shatters the invisible magical binding. Its burning eyes flare with savage rage as it locks its sights back onto the shepherd. Turan leaps backward with superhuman agility, effortlessly evading the beast's ferocious retaliation. Landing gracefully, a calm resolve washes over his face as he decides to switch tactics. He quietly reaches down and pulls a simple, ordinary stone out of his pocket. Whipping his trusty leather sling into a rapid spin, he prepares to deal with the threat his own way. Undeterred, the house-sized shadow leopard charges forward at terrifying, blinding speed. Channeling his hidden magical power into the small pebble, he commands it to harden like steel. He pulls back his arm, channeling a massive burst of pressure into the spinning weapon. His eye flares with a brilliant golden magic, locking onto his target with absolute precision. With one final devastating command, he orders the projectile to accelerate past the limits of sound. He releases the sling, sending the supercharged stone tearing through the air with a deafening sonic boom. His foot plants firmly into the dirt as the devastating shot is fired, leaving the beast's ultimate fate hanging in the balance. With a lethal gleam in his eye, Turan unleashes a terrifying strike to pierce through his colossal foe. A brilliant beam of raw energy erupts from his sling, tearing through the air with devastating force. The projectile accelerates at supersonic speed, homing in on the gargantuan shadow leopard. With pinpoint accuracy, the hyper-accelerated stone slams directly into the massive beast. Dark energy and black blood splatter violently into the sky from the impact. The devastating force bores completely through the monster's defenses, shattering its solid rocky armor. An explosive shockwave erupts, kicking up a massive cloud of dust and debris. The colossal predator roars in pure agony as Turan calmly watches its massive form crumble. A smug, confident smile plays on Turan's lips as he locks onto his next vital target. He launches another massive stone high into the air, completely dominating the battlefield. The second devastating shot connects, violently blowing the monster's head apart in a spectacular explosion of blood. A blinding beam of magical energy completely vaporizes the colossal beast's skull. With a massive earth-shaking thud, the house-sized monster collapses lifelessly onto the dirt. Turan looks down at the gargantuan corpse, reflecting on how this was his first time using his power on a monster. Staring at the bloody remains, he casually contemplates whether he should just dump the massive carcass into a nearby valley. Wiping blood from his cheek, the silver-haired shepherd sighs, complaining about how much work the villagers have caused him. Powerful wizards summon glowing magic circles symbolizing the hidden legacy of magical bloodlines that rule this world. Turan's eye reflects a deep, ancient power as he mentally confirms his true identity as a hidden wizard. He recalls the fateful moment 8 years ago when he first discovered his supernatural telekinetic abilities. At just 10 years old, a young silver-haired Turan watched in awe as multiple heavy objects floated effortlessly around him. The young boy smiled brightly, excitedly calling out to show off his newly discovered flying logs. His mother stood frozen in the doorway, completely shocked by the terrifying sight of her son's awakening. The young Turan gleefully explained how he could command fire and wind, a memory that remains perfectly clear in his mind. Terrified for his safety, his black-haired mother suddenly screamed at him to stop using his power. Her sudden anger confused the young boy as she firmly grabbed the floating wood to halt his magic. Kneeling down to his eye level, she gently urged her young son to sit down and listen to her. She tenderly asked if he wanted to live a long, safe life together with her, prompting a quiet nod. Looking down at the wooden logs, she made him promise never to use his powers again. Her expression grew dead serious as she demanded he vow never to reveal his magic to another human. Confused, the silver-haired boy asked why, prompting his mother to recall the legendary history of nobles and knights. The young boy stared intently, confirming he remembered the tales of the ancient warriors. She explained that both nobles and knights are recognized as wizards, yet they are divided by a harsh social divide. Golden divine liquid pours over an ancient figure, illustrating how pure-blooded nobles descended from gods while knights mixed with humans. Clinging tightly to his staff, the boy listened as his mother emphasized the weight of this dangerous heritage. Turning her back, she solemnly prepared to reveal the dark truth of why his magical lineage must remain hidden. She whispered the shocking secret that Turan had inherited his immense power from his father, a legendary knight. She warned him of the cruel nobles ruling the outside world who ruthlessly exploit knights as mere slaves. Looking deeply into his eyes, she strictly commanded him to keep his identity as a wizard a complete secret. With a warm, reassuring smile, she asked him to promise her he would stay hidden from the world. Back in the present, Turan stands quietly in his cabin, reflecting on how he has faithfully kept his mother's sacred promise. He gently pulls the curtain back, determined to ensure that his mother's solemn vow remains unbroken. Looking through the glass, he reiterates his complete lack of interest in ever revealing his godlike magic. Staring out at the peaceful mountain, he remains content with his quiet life far away from human conflict. Suddenly, a sharp, repetitive thudding sound echoes from his front door, catching him completely off guard. A violent fist repeatedly slams against his wooden door as an angry voice screams for him to come out. Turan calmly opens the door, showing absolutely no fear toward the sudden intruders. A group of furious armed villagers stands waiting outside, their faces twisted with intense suspicion. Turan lets out a massive yawn, completely unfazed by their aggressive and hostile demeanor. His expression remains neutral as they drop a shocking accusation, claiming he is the one who murdered Elder Rabbis. The hostile mob surrounds the lone shepherd in the pasture, setting off a tense confrontation that could force him to break his lifetime promise. Cornered by an angry mob, Turan's quiet life is shattered as a furious villager violently grabs his collar. The raging attacker fiercely accuses the shepherd of abandoning Elder Rabbis to be eaten by monsters. Turan meets the explosive accusation with a cold, unflinching silence. The surrounding mob looks on in shock as Turan's absolute calm catches them completely off guard. Turan exposes their cowardice, pointing out how they are simply trying to shift the blame for their own fear. With a provocative smirk, he boldly calls out their pathetic attempt to make him a scapegoat. Enraged by the truth, the muscular villager rears back and unleashes a furious punch. With superhuman reflexes, Turan effortlessly ducks beneath a devastating strike. Realizing he has no choice but to fight back, he prepares to tap into his forbidden magic. In the blink of an eye, Turan delivers a brutal counterstrike that sends his attacker sprawling. As the remaining mob rushes forward, Turan calculates the cost of using his secret power. A subtle grin plays on his lips as he prepares to teach him a lesson. He easily neutralizes his opponents one by one, sending them crashing into the dirt. He moves like a ghost, dodging their desperate attacks with minimal effort. He carefully controls his immense strength to ensure his magical intervention remains completely unnoticed. He shatters their wooden weapons instantly, applying just enough force to incapacitate them without taking lives. Turan completely dominates the battlefield, systematically dismantling the hostile crowd. The terrified villagers find themselves utterly helpless against his overwhelming speed and power. Their broken weapons scatter through the air, symbolizing the total failure of their ambush. Another defeated attacker collapses to the grass, completely defeated. Surveying the groaning men, Turan reflects on how easily he has kept his identity hidden for 8 long years. He coldly suggests they should have used this desperate energy to properly bury their fallen elder instead of hunting him. 2 frightened village women frantically try to explain their presence, terrified of his power. They nervously confess they only came to see him, leaving Turan momentarily silent as he considers his next move. Returning to the quiet sanctuary of his cabin, Turan sheds his heavy winter coat. He sighs as he realizes the town will be in chaos again, which they will inevitably use to cheat him during trades. Shrugging it off, he resolves to simply beat them up until they offer him a fair price. His thoughts of peace are abruptly interrupted by a loud, sudden banging at his front door. Staring at the vibrating door, a person mutters that these persistent fools must be completely out of their minds. A heavy gloved fist repeatedly slams against the solid wooden frame. Turan aggressively flings the door open, ready to unleash his wrath on yet another intruder. Instead of a vengeful villager, a towering, battle-worn traveler stands silently in the doorway. The bearded traveler politely apologizes, realizing he has arrived at an incredibly awkward time. Staring at the stranger, Turan is surprised to encounter an outsider in this remote territory. Turan quickly calms down, explaining that he was just dealing with some highly unwanted guests. He mentally notes how awkward it feels to speak politely, having never used his manners with the pathetic locals. Turan's eyes drift to the sharp sword hanging from the stranger's belt, piquing his curiosity. Just as Turan offers to direct him to a nearby inn, a loud, embarrassing growl erupts from the traveler's stomach. Letting out a soft sigh, Turan realizes he cannot turn away a hungry traveler. The scene shifts inside as the wooden door gently closes, welcoming the stranger. A warm, hearty feast of fresh bread, savory meats, and soup is laid out on the wooden table. Despite Turan downplaying the modest meal, the starving traveler happily declares it to be an absolute feast. As they eat, the traveler expresses surprise that Turan has never met an outsider, which the shepherd quietly confirms. Turan explains that he has spent his entire life working as a humble shepherd on these quiet hills. The traveler silently observes the young shepherd, his keen gaze analyzing his host. Turan calmly sips his drink, entirely relaxed in the presence of his new guest. Turan blinks in mild surprise as the traveler suddenly speaks up. The traveler compliments his refined manners, noting that his parents must have raised him exceptionally well. Turan sadly reveals that his mother taught him everything before passing away from an illness years ago. Offering a solemn blessing, the traveler assures him that his mother is undoubtedly resting in peace with the gods, completely unaware of the storm brewing just over the horizon. Tensions flare in the quiet cabin as Kiorn expresses deep gratitude for the meal, while Turan humbly credits his mother's strict upbringing for his hospitality. Curious about his sudden guest, Turan asks what brought him to this remote area, prompting Kiorn to reveal he was hired for a special favor. As Turan inquires further, Kiorn explains that a client tasked him with hunting down a dangerous monster puma terrorizing the region. The atmosphere turns incredibly tense as Kiorn calmly drops a bombshell, declaring that he is a powerful wizard. Recognizing the weight of that title, Turan identifies Kiorn as the legendary figure the village elder spoke of, which Kiorn quietly confirms.
Kiorn asks if he can ask a question, and Turan warily gives him permission to speak.
Kiorn explains that while he senses a massive monster nearby, he cannot see any beast in the immediate area. Suspicion mounts as Kiorn points out how strange it is that a simple shepherd knows of the monster yet remains completely unfazed. Leaning in, Kiorn asks if Turan is truly not afraid, pointing out that he would be the monster's prime target. Kiorn notes that Turan seems far too brave and calm for an ordinary shepherd who has never left his hometown. Staring directly at his host, Kiorn demands to know Turan's true identity, threatening to shatter his peaceful facade. Flashback shows a young, silver-haired Turan asking his mother why he must keep his magical nature a complete secret from the world. His mother grimly reveals that the danger stems from corrupt nobles, leaving the young boy confused. She explains the harsh reality of their world, comparing nobles to ruthless shepherds and wizards to mere hounds kept on a leash. A vision of a grand cathedral illustrates her warning that the ruling class will readily exploit, sell, or sacrifice lesser wizards for their own gain. Desperate to protect him, she asks if he wants to stay safe by her side, prompting a passionate promise from the young boy. She implores him to remember that under no circumstances can anyone ever discover his true abilities. She warns that other wizards will ruthlessly separate them and force him into a life of servitude if they ever find out. Back in the present, Turan remains silent, his expression darkening as he remembers his mother's sacred warning. The tension reaches a boiling point as Kiorn notes that protecting his secret might eventually force Turan to take human lives. A legendary warrior and a sorceress stand side by side amidst glowing magical runes. Turan mentally resolves that if killing is what it takes to protect his secret, he will do whatever is necessary. Accepting his dark fate, Turan prepares himself for a lethal confrontation inside his own home. Kiorn demands to know why he remains silent, while Turan's eyes glow with lethal magical intent. Suddenly, the suffocating aura vanishes as Kiorn's intense gaze softens into a relaxed posture. Kiorn bursts into laughter, teasingly complaining that Turan's serious face is ruining his playful joke. Completely caught off guard, Turan blinks in disbelief, realizing he was completely played. Turan apologizes for his lack of humor, while Kjorn quickly says he is the one who should apologize for flustering him. Turan admits he has never heard a wizard joke before, prompting Kjorn to laugh and apologize for taking the tease too far. Brushing the tension aside, Kjorn extends his hand, noting they still haven't introduced themselves properly. Kjorn warmly introduces himself as a simple, wandering traveler. Turan takes his hand, apologizing for not offering his own name first in his own home. Grasping Kjorn's hand, Turan introduces himself as a humble shepherd. Over a hearty breakfast, Turan reveals he is 18, while Kjorn shocks him by claiming he is 75. Turan marvels at his youthful appearance, prompting Kjorn to explain that wizards age far slower than ordinary humans. Turan asks how he became a wanderer, and Kjorn explains he left his life behind after serving a noble family for 60 years. Kjorn shares his dream of traveling without ever settling down, which Turan finds incredibly romantic. A warm smile spreads across Turan's face as the two share a remarkably peaceful, harmless conversation. Kjorn grins, thoroughly enjoying the rare comfort of their genuine connection. Sitting together, Turan reflects on how surprisingly delightful it feels to talk openly with another soul. Looking out the window, Turan is shocked to realize they have talked straight through the night. Kjorn notices the rising sun and decides it is finally time for him to depart. Kjorn places a pure silver coin on the wooden table, asserting it will easily cover the cost of the meal. Turan accepts the payment and wishes him a safe hunt, but Kjorn playfully objects to the formal farewell. Turning toward the door, Kjorn warns Turan that he fully intends to return and mooch off his cooking again. The morning sun bathes the peaceful mountain valley and the sleepy town in a golden glow. Gentle sheep graze peacefully on the lush green hills as a quiet morning begins. Stepping out into the pasture, Turan smiles warmly and calls for his flock together. The sheep instantly perk up their ears, recognizing their master's commanding voice. Standing proud on the grassy hill, Turan watches his flock happily run toward him, his quiet life preserved for now. A legendary secret is about to be exposed as Turan marvels at having finally met another wizard, finding their comfortable conversation uniquely refreshing. He gently pets his sheep, noting how naturally the traveler's humor and warmth felt during their long chat. He realizes this stranger is more genuine than any adult he has ever met in his entire life. He fondly recalls the traveler returning with a successful hunt, proving he truly is a good person. Leading his flock across the hills, Turan reflects on how he once viewed all knights as emotionless puppets of arrogant nobles. Turan's expression darkens with concern as he wonders how he can break the heavy truth to his new companion. Looking out over the dense valley, he ponders how to explain that no monsters remain on Hisaril Hill. Meanwhile, deep in the woods, Kjorn walks a quiet trail and immediately senses that something is incredibly wrong. He stops to examine the silent clearing, noting clear traces of a massive battle but absolutely no lingering beastly presence. Staring at a massive claw mark high up on a tree, he begins to suspect the target monster has already been hunted. Spotting a giant glowing mana crystal embedded in the rock, he questions if another wizard was secretly hired to kill the beast. Kjorn smiles softly, deciding that as long as the monster is dead and the region is safe, nothing else matters. Suddenly, a chill runs down his spine and his eye widens in pure, unadulterated shock. He whips his head around in panic as a massive, hostile presence surges directly behind him. A colossal, monstrous claw equipped with a glowing yellow eye slams violently into the ground. A horrific skeletal demon beast with bloodied fangs and a long tongue roars in absolute fury. Facing the towering abomination, Kjorn realizes with horror that he is looking at a monster's vengeful wraith. Sweating and terrified, he frantically questions what kind of fool would leave a slain monster to rot like this. The massive dark claw of the wraith lunges forward, aiming to crush him into dust. Kjorn barely leaps back in time as the colossal strike shatters the earth where he stood. Retracting, Kjorn knows a slain monster turns into a wraith if its residual mana is left unabsorbed by the hunter. He leaps high into the air as the beast lunges forward to tear him to pieces. Mid-air, Kjorn reasons that a wizard definitely killed the monster, but wonders why they left it to become a wraith. He questions whether the mysterious hunter was simply too ignorant to absorb the monster's mana. Landing swiftly, he dismisses the idea, knowing no amateur could have defeated such a formidable monster in the first place. Charging magical energy in his hand, he suspects the mysterious killer must have had a sinister alternative motive. With no other choice, Kjorn resolves to completely destroy the vengeful specter before it can escape. He unleashes a searing beam of golden magical energy straight at the charging beast. To his absolute horror, the golden blast is instantly nullified by the creature's dark shield. Kjorn stands paralyzed, realizing the monster's mana is vastly stronger than his own high-tier magic. Before he can even formulate a counter-strategy, the terrifying creature suddenly dissolves into thin air. Looking around frantically, Kjorn fears the wraith is preparing a lethal magical counterattack from the shadows. Beneath his boots, a bubbling pool of pitch-black liquid begins to rise from the ground. The colossal beast looms directly out of his shadow, preparing to strike from behind. The giant claw descends upon the helpless wizard with bone-crushing force. Clenching his fist, Kjorn desperately concentrates all his remaining mana for one final lethal counterstrike. The beast's razor-sharp claws close in, leaving him with absolutely no room for error. Gritting his teeth, Kjorn prepares to strike the beast directly the moment it lunges. Their attacks clash in a spectacular, blinding explosion of raw energy. Suddenly, a massive blue blade of magical energy cuts cleanly through the dark aura. A giant, decisive slash of light completely cleaves the monster in half. Kjorn gasps in absolute shock, stunned by the unexpected salvation. The massive body of the dissected wraith collapses heavily onto the dirt trail. A calm voice breaks the silence, asking Kjorn if he is unharmed. Turan emerges from the shadows, teasingly noting that a shepherd's joke can be quite startling too. The young shepherd steps forward, introducing himself properly as Turan. Kjorn's jaw drops as he finally pieces together the truth, and Turan quietly confirms his wizard identity. Looking at his young savior, Kjorn demands to know why he hid his power. He demands to know why Turan chose to save him when he could have easily walked away. A knowing smile creeps onto Turan's face as he prepares to reveal his true reasons. The eerie silence of the wilderness is shattered by the gruesome trophy of a terrifying hunt. Sitting before a warm fireplace, Kjorn questions the young shepherd's reckless motives. The veteran knight points out that such incredible talent could easily earn a fortune elsewhere. Kjorn expresses pity for the defenseless villagers, prompting Turan's curiosity. He explains the harsh reality of frontier life, wondering why Turan shoulders their burden. Turan listens intently as Kjorn defines the noble duty of a true wizard. Kjorn notes that every magic user must ultimately decide their own path. A subtle, knowing smile plays on the veteran's face as he finishes speaking. Smiling warmly, Turan agrees that everyone is free to live as they choose. Suddenly, a devastating shockwave erupts as a monstrous threat violently ambushes them. Panic sets in as Kjorn screams at the young shepherd to retreat immediately. Sweating profusely, the knight orders Turan to warn the village and evacuate. With fierce determination, Kjorn prepares to buy them time by holding the line alone. A colossal, single-eyed shadow wraith looms over the brave veteran knight. Igniting his fist with flames, Kjorn quietly doubts his own chances of survival. Behind him, Turan's eyes glow with immense power as he prepares to unleash his true potential. The colossal beast strikes with brutal speed, instantly shattering Kjorn's defenses. Kjorn is violently hurled through the forest, blood splattering from the savage impact. Gasping for breath on the forest floor, he laments facing such a high-caliber threat. The horrific monster closes in, leaving the battered knight with no escape. Kjorn struggles to draw breath as the shadow of death looms directly over him. Gritting his teeth, the veteran resolves to drag the beast down the hill with him. I'm not able to speed up my speech, but I can read it back at a normal pace for you. Also, hearing that sentence, I want to let you know that if you or anyone you know is struggling with difficult feelings, there's help available. You can connect with people who care by calling 988 in the US or visiting 988lifeline.org. Please reach out. Things can get better. Now, reading back the text, just as he prepares for a final suicidal strike, his eyes widen in pure disbelief. A massive boulder suddenly floats in midair, glowing with intense blue mana. Kjorn stares in shock, realizing the young shepherd is casually holding back his true strength. Overwhelming confusion grips the veteran as he witnesses the boy's impossible power. Countless heavy stone slabs rise into the sky, defying gravity effortlessly. Standing amidst the roaring tempest of mana, Turan radiates the aura of a god. A fleeting vision of legendary champions serves as a reminder of their grand destiny. The giant demon beast reels back as Turan prepares to unleash a cataclysmic barrage. With absolute calmness, the silver-haired youth welcomes the chance to test his limits. Kjorn desperately shouts a warning, urging the boy not to underestimate the wraith. As the beast lunges, Kjorn attempts to charge forward and support him. A tremendous kinetic impact rattles the clearing as physical strikes collide with the monster. Kjorn pauses, realizing his own magic would only hinder the boy's devastating assault. Clenching his fist, the veteran accepts that he is currently powerless to help. He decides his new purpose is to help the young prodigy's talent truly bloom. A cataclysmic twin spiral of blue magical energy completely engulfs the battlefield. Turan looks on with mild frustration, realizing his attack did not finish the job. A high-speed blur of motion indicates the battle is far from over. Leaping high, Turan strikes the beast again, only to find physical attacks useless. Kjorn frantically explains his standard physical strikes cannot harm a spiritual wraith. The colossal abomination thrashes violently, sending shockwaves through the dirt trail. Landing gracefully, Turan demands to know how to destroy the creature. Learning fire is key. His eyes flare with intensity as Kjorn suggests utilizing lightning as an alternative. Turan instantly unleashes a devastating elemental blast directly into the monster's eye. Leaning casually against a tree, Turan notes the attack failed, baffling the veteran. Kjorn is utterly horrified, realizing the boy lacks even the most basic understanding of magic. A shocking revelation begins to dawn on the seasoned knight. As the dust settles, Kjorn realizes Turan previously slew the beast but never absorbed its mana. Kjorn looks up in absolute shock as he realizes the sheer, terrifying scale of Turan's untapped raw magical power. With a blinding speed, Turan slides forward across the dirt trail to position himself for a decisive attack. He ignites his hand with a small, swirling ember of highly concentrated, blazing fire. Facing down the massive looming beast, Turan effortlessly manipulates the flickering flame in his open palm. Kjorn's jaw drops as the young wizard instantly conjures an enormous, roaring vortex of fire with zero effort. Planted firmly on the ground, Turan prepares to unleash the devastating physical force of his elemental strike. Leaping forward, he drives the swirling inferno directly toward the beast in a spectacular explosion of heat. The searing flames engulf the monstrous glowing green eyes, searing through its spiritual form. The colossal wraith writhes and screams in agony as the holy fire completely consumes its skeletal body. Kjorn frantically yells to Turan, urging him to maintain absolute focus and keep pouring his mana into the flames. He emphasizes that they must completely incinerate the creature to ensure not a single trace remains. Turan's eye reflects the brilliant dancing embers of the blazing fire, filled with quiet, unbreakable resolve. A final, massive explosion of blinding fire completely vaporizes the remains of the terrifying specter. Letting out a long, exhausted sigh of relief, Kjorn proudly declares that the battle is finally won. He reflects on the absurd, high-level threat of the Wraith, which normally requires elite noble-class power to defeat. His eyes widen in lingering disbelief as he realizes the staggering truth of what just transpired. Turan stands calmly amidst the ashes, pondering if the threat is truly over as the monster's giant claws dissolve. Kjorn urges him to quickly absorb the monster's residual mana to prevent another vengeful Wraith from rising. Following Kjorn's instructions, Turan prepares to draw the lingering magical energy directly into his own body. Closing his eyes, the young shepherd concentrates deeply, feeling the flow of magic around him. A massive cloud of glowing green mana begins to rise slowly from the beast's skeletal remains. Extending his hand, Turan draws the swirling green energy into his palm, absorbing it seamlessly. His eyes fly open, glowing with a brilliant, newly awakened green light as the energy surges through his veins. A magnificent silhouette of Turan appears, displaying the intricate, glowing pathways of his newly expanded mana pool. He gasps in sudden surprise, feeling a bizarre and overwhelming sensation wash over his entire being. Kjorn explains the intense physical sensation of mana absorption while silently marveling at the boy's terrifying potential. Clenching his fist, Turan confirms that this was indeed his very first time absorbing external mana. Kjorn explains the natural progression of magic, highlighting how rare and difficult it is to grow this strong. The veteran knight's mind reels as he grapples with the terrifying realization of Turan's godlike talent. He stares at the young shepherd, recognizing that he is looking at a once-in-a-generation magical prodigy. Turan looks back at him, prompting Kjorn to break his stunned silence and speak. Bowing deeply in respect, Kjorn apologizes for his previous rudeness and asks about Turan's noble lineage. Turan is taken aback by the sudden, formal display of respect from the seasoned veteran knight. Suddenly, Kjorn winces in intense pain as his untreated wounds burst open, splattering blood onto the dirt. Seeking shelter, Kjorn rests inside Turan's cabin with his injured arm carefully bandaged and supported by a sling. Kjorn humbly apologizes for forcing such a high-caliber wizard to tend to his wounds and serve him. Smiling softly, Turan insists he is nothing more than a humble, nameless shepherd from the mountains. He gives Kjorn a stern, sharp glare, firmly requesting that the veteran knight drop the overly polite formalities. Feeling deeply curious, Kjorn wonders why a wizard of such legendary caliber would choose to live as a simple shepherd. Outside the quiet, isolated wooden cabin, a small flock of sheep grazes peacefully on the green grass. Inside, Turan somberly explains that he is merely fulfilling his late mother's dying, protective request. He shares her warning that revealing his powers below the mountains would only lead to exploitation by corrupt nobles. Listening intently, Kjorn realizes the deep wisdom behind the late mother's protective warnings. Surprised by Kjorn's understanding, Turan admits he expected the veteran to dismiss it as overprotective parenting. Kjorn explains that immense power inevitably breeds endless conflict, speaking from his own painful experiences. He recalls the catastrophic, bloody war fought decades ago between the noble houses of Arabian and Zahar. The veteran grimly details the horrific casualties, revealing that nearly a third of their knights perished. Turan listens in stunned silence as Kjorn prepares to share his deepest, most painful personal tragedy. In a haunting flashback, the bodies of Kjorn's close friends and teachers lie scattered across the bloody battlefield. A devastated knight cradles his slain family as Kjorn laments that he alone survived the brutal massacre. A shattering truth begins to emerge as Kjorn explains that a knight's life is tragically fragile, validating why Turan's mother desperately hid him away. But the veteran quickly reveals that the protective mother made one colossal error. She vastly underestimated the boy's monstrous magical aptitude. Sitting inside the quiet cabin, Kiorn humbly admits his own high status while pointing out that Turan effortlessly obliterated a wraith he couldn't even scratch. He confidently declares that the young shepherd's hidden potential easily transcends standard knighthood, matching the tier of elite nobles. Kiorn estimates that Turan's raw power actually sits at the absolute peak among the realm's highest-ranking magical bloodlines. Bewildered by the claim, the silver-haired youth questions his parentage, prompting Kiorn to explain that rare genetic anomalies occasionally produce high-tier children. Rising from his seat, Kiorn passionately urges the young prodigy to abandon his quiet pasture and step out into the dangerous world. He explains that humanity is locked in a desperate struggle for dominance, requiring every powerful warrior they can find. The veteran warns of ancient, forgotten races pushed out by the gods who are constantly waiting for an opportunity to reclaim the earth. To make matters worse, the greedy noble houses waste humanity's strength by waging endless bloody civil wars against one another. He insists that this chaotic era desperately requires strong, compassionate leaders who can truly protect the innocent. Stepping out into the sunlight, Kiorn challenges the youth, asking if a simple life of herding sheep can ever truly satisfy him. Turan stands in silence, the veteran's heavy words slowly chipping away at his peaceful resolve. The young shepherd asks what he could possibly gain from descending the mountain, prompting Kiorn to state that it depends on his deepest desires. Kiorn lists the grand spoils of the outer world, from wealth and fame to genuine family and lifelong friendships. He invites the youth to imagine a life of wandering the lands and destroying the monsters that terrorize common folk. Looking at the simple weapons resting on the wall, Kiorn proposes a future as an explorer or even adoption into a powerful noble household. The veteran's enticing visions of adventure and purpose slowly begin to resonate with the isolated boy. Standing out in the grief field, Turan admits that such a legendary path sounds far more exciting than his quiet daily chores. For the first time in his memory, a burning curiosity for the massive world below takes root in the boy's heart. Smiling warmly, Kiorn promises to stand by the young prodigy and support whatever path he chooses to walk. The veteran suddenly pauses, questioning Turan about the specific nature of his innate bloodline ability. Kiorn quickly backtracks, realizing the secluded shepherd has never been taught the basic fundamentals of magical families. He explains that a bloodline ability is a mystical trait directly inherited from their ancient divine ancestors. This specific genetic miracle is the ultimate deciding factor that separates high nobles from common knights. Igniting a flame in his hand, Kiorn asks if any magical elements or physical actions have always felt unusually effortless for him. Turan clenches his fist, wondering if his enhanced physical strength is merely a natural byproduct of his massive mana supply. The boy mentions his incredibly sharp sense of smell and his talent for throwing stones, which Kiorn notes are classic signs of inherited traits. Kiorn identifies exceptional accuracy with thrown weapons as a signature trait of House Arabian, though it is relatively common. Intrigued by the mystery of his heritage, Turan eagerly begs the veteran to explain further. But Kiorn suddenly freezes, his eyes wide with a horrifying realization that leaves the boy deeply confused. Unsettled by the sudden shift in atmosphere, Turan demands to know why the seasoned knight looks so pale. Kiorn reveals that he has finally deduced exactly which legendary house matches Turan's unique physical gifts. A grave expression settles over the veteran as the curious boy asks for the name of the household. Standing by the threshold of the cabin, Kiorn prepares to utter the name of a notorious faction. He describes them as a formidable clan of apex predators, historically feared as ruthless pursuers and hunters. The veteran names the infamous House Zahar, a bloodthirsty lineage that once initiated a catastrophic war. The haunting memory flashes of the brutal conflict fought directly against Kiorn's own family, House Arabiel. Shock paralyzes Turan as the horrific historical puzzle pieces finally fall into place. The terrifying truth echoes through his mind. He is a direct descendant of the dreaded House Zahar. The young shepherd realizes his bloodline is directly responsible for the slaughter of the veteran's closest friends. Sweating profusely, Turan looks at the veteran and realizes he is the living legacy of Kiorn's mortal enemies. Panic gripped the youth as he wonders how to apologize to the man whose life was ruined by his ancestors. Kiorn breaks the tense silence, speaking the young shepherd's name with surprising softness. He gently commands the boy to dismiss the worry weighing heavily on his face. Reaching out, the veteran places a comforting hand on Turan's shoulder, dispelling the rising tension. Turan looks up in disbelief, reminding the knight of the bloody war that should make them bitter enemies. Smiling warmly, Kiorn insists that old feuds belong to the previous generation, refusing to continue a cycle of endless vengeance. Stunned by the veteran's grace, Turan looks into his eyes and asks if he harbors any regrets. He questions if the knight truly means his offer to help the descendant of his enemies descend the mountain and claim his destiny. Standing on a vast green field, Turan and Kiorn prepare to face a fate that could shake the very foundations of the realm. Kiorn warns the young shepherd that descending the mountain to seek power will inevitably force him into the legendary Zahar family. Turan is shocked when the veteran knight suddenly confesses that he deeply trusts his character despite their family's bloody history. Kiorn explains that the young boy's decision to reveal his secret powers to save a complete stranger proves his inherent goodness. The veteran suggests that Turan rising to a high position within the Zahar family could have a massive impact on the world. Turan listens in quiet disbelief as Kiorn muses that the boy's leadership could finally prevent another catastrophic war from happening. Sensing the immense burden his words have placed on the boy, Kiorn quickly tells him not to take things too seriously. The veteran reassures the young shepherd that he does not have to make any immediate decisions about joining the Zahar family. Turan catches Kiorn off guard by suddenly declaring that his thoughts are completely clear. With a confident smile, Turan reveals his final decision to descend the mountain and face the outside world. Kiorn commends his resolve but advises him that they should not leave immediately, suggesting they wait. Turan decides to postpone their departure until Kiorn's wounds have fully healed. Grateful for the boy's kindness, Kiorn tries to brush off his injuries as minor scratches. The veteran knight is deeply moved by the young shepherd's incredibly pure and compassionate heart. The scene shifts back inside the wooden cabin where a legendary magic lesson is about to begin. Kiorn explains that mana is the essential foundation for all magic, often called the key to absolute omnipotence. Turan ponders the concept of matching his magic with the correct amount of mana. Sitting at the table, Turan asks about the standard for matching mana, prompting Kiorn to explain the rules. Holding up 3 fingers, Kiorn explains that magic's difficulty depends on bloodline, affinity, and causality. The veteran explains that bloodline magic is an inherited trait that most nobles possess naturally without training. Pointing to his bandaged arm, Kiorn notes that healing magic would be exceptionally difficult for Turan to cast. He reveals that descendants of the Southern Ravista family can instinctively cast high-level healing spells without any training. Turan asks about affinity, and the knight explains it as a mage's natural familiarity with certain actions. The boy realizes his affinity is why his fireball manifested so easily when he treated it like throwing a rock. Kiorn confirms his theory, explaining that mimicking physical habits drastically increases magical speed and raw power. Focusing on a simple mug of water, the veteran introduces causality as the most critical and complex magical concept. Kiorn poses a hypothetical scenario to illustrate how using raw mana to directly kill someone lacks physical logic. Hovering his hand over a wooden mug, Kiorn demonstrates how magic fails when there is a complete lack of causality. Water bubbles violently in the mug as Kiorn explains how magic demands a logical cause to produce a desired outcome. Turan listens intently, starting to comprehend the intricate rules of causality. Turan ignites a fire over the mug, explaining that creating a projectile is a logical cause to achieve a desired effect. Kiorn is ecstatic at the boy's quick wit, declaring he could have easily been a genius scholar. Turan questions why ordinary animals are easy to tame while magical beasts require a much more complex magical approach. Outside the cabin window, a sheep grazes peacefully, oblivious to the high-level magic discussion. Turan realizes magic is incredibly complex, while Kiorn explains that true mastery requires understanding its core principles. Turan asks if the Zahar bloodline has unique magic, and Kiorn reveals they excel at stealth and tracking. Curious to see the boy's inherited magic, Kiorn challenges him to try using his bloodline ability. Closing his eyes, Turan focuses on his desire to completely hide his present sound and scent from others. A faint mystical mist begins to envelop the young shepherd as his ancient bloodline responds to his will. Kiorn looks around in shock, wondering if the young shepherd's magic actually worked. Turan completely vanishes from the room, leaving behind only a faint, shimmering visual distortion on the carpet. Kiorn stands completely stunned, confirming that he can no longer see or sense the boy's presence anywhere. The seasoned veteran swallows hard, deeply unnerved by how easily the boy mastered such a terrifying spell. The wooden cabin interior remains perfectly still and quiet, with no trace of the vanished boy. With a soft, shimmering glow, Turan slowly materializes back into the physical world. Kiorn warns him that this terrifying stealth magic was once the most feared ability during the ancient wars. While acknowledging its unfair strength, Kiorn reminds the young boy that no magical ability is completely invincible. As Kiorn offers to teach him training methods, Turan asks if it is wise to instruct an enemy mage. Turan looks at the knight, who reminds him of the life-saving kindness they have already shared. With a warm, genuine smile, Kiorn places a hand on his chest and reaffirms his absolute trust in the boy's heart. A shocking declaration echoes through the village as a man screams about selling his sheep and leaving forever. The balding village chief stands completely paralyzed by the sudden life-altering news. He frantically demands to know who will tend the sheep now that their only shepherd is departing. Turan stands packed and ready to depart, ignoring the chief's outraged protests about making decisions without them. Turan coldly tells them to find their own shepherd, questioning why they care about his personal belongings. Turan demands a fair price for his sheep, threatening to release them all if they refuse. Turan warns that recapturing freed sheep is nearly impossible, causing the villagers to panic. The chief realizes Turan is serious and knows irritating him will only bring disaster. Accepting the deal, the chief pays him off, letting Turan and Kiorn freely walk away. Turan asks Kiorn if he should go back to collect the unpaid compensation from the villagers.
Kiorn declines, pointing out that Turan was the one who actually defeated the magical beast.
Turan smiles warmly, accepting the veteran's humble response. Arriving at a crossroads in the quiet forest, Kiorn announces it is time to part ways. Kiorn apologizes for refusing to travel together, admitting he prefers a solitary path. Turan warmly thanks the veteran knight for all his guidance. Kiorn bids Turan a gentle farewell, wishing him safety on his journey. Turan hopes their paths will cross again under happier circumstances. The young shepherd stands silent, watching Kiorn slowly disappear into the distant woods. Turan realizes why he felt uneasy about the veteran speaking to him so formally. Despite receiving plenty of love from his mother during his secluded upbringing, the boy had always secretly longed for a strong father figure in his life. He wanted a true role model to teach him how to become a real man. Footsteps echo softly as Turan continues his journey alone. The lush mountain forests give way to a desolate, windswept canyon. Turan trudges through the barren wasteland, his white cloak fluttering in the wind. Pulling his hood back, Turan spots something unexpected in the distance. Turan's eyes narrow as he locks onto a group of strangers. He wonders if the hooded travelers ahead are merely wandering merchants. A small convoy of cloaked figures slowly moves across the sandy plains. Turan decides to approach them, stepping forward with newfound resolve. He decides to ask the strangers for directions to the nearest town. A scarred, one-eyed leader demands to know why Turan is blocking their path. The stranger points him toward Mure, a major city down the road. Thanking them politely, Turan turns to resume his journey toward the city. Suddenly, a sharp command halts Turan in his tracks. A sinister man with a wicked grin demands payment for their free information. The hostile stranger insists that no favor goes unpaid in these dangerous lands. Weapons slide from their sheaths as the convoy reveals their true deadly intentions. The group demands Turan hand over his massive backpack. Turan calmly identifies them as bandits, prompting an arrogant response from the thugs. The eye-patch-wearing leader unsheathes his blade, declaring that deaths go unnoticed in this desolate wasteland. A blade is leveled at Turan's throat as they demand his cloak and gear. Turan's gaze turns ice-cold as he realizes these thugs are willing to murder. A memory of his magic training with Kiorn flashes through Turan's mind. He remembers a lesson about creating a logical cause to produce a devastating effect. The veteran's crucial advice on combat readiness echoes in his thoughts. Turan makes a chilling decision to test his magic on his attackers. A terrifying, confident smile spreads across Turan's face as he readies his weapon. Turan declares he will use the ruthless bandits as live training targets. Amused by the boy's bizarre confidence, the bandit scoffs in disbelief, unaware of the nightmare about to unfold. A terrifying confrontation turns into outright mockery as ruthless bandits laugh in the face of absolute danger. Turan swiftly channels his mana, shaping the air with a single hand movement. A devastating shockwave of gale-force wind erupts, blowing his attackers away.
Turan realizes that manipulating existing wind requires far less mana than creating it.
The battered bandits collapse in pain, completely shocked by his immense strength. Pulling water from his canteen, Turan prepares to cast his next spell. The swirling water instantly crystallizes into a sharp, deadly ice shard. Multiple freezing daggers hover around Turan as he calmly targets his prey. A bandit freezes in pure terror, realizing they picked the wrong target. The lethal ice projectiles strike with perfect precision, drawing blood instantly. Turan reflects on his spell, finding physical throwing methods much more efficient. The terrified leader drops to his knees, desperately begging the wizard for mercy. The remaining thugs pretend to surrender while preparing a treacherous sneak attack. Turan calmly stomps his foot to activate a powerful earth spell. Massive stone spikes erupt from the ground, instantly skewering the treacherous attackers. The horrified leader gasps in absolute disbelief at the sudden slaughter. Turan stands victorious amidst the impaled bodies of his defeated foes. He demands to know why they chose to attack him. Turan questions why they recklessly targeted a lone traveler who could easily be a mage. He stares down the trembling bandit, awaiting a logical explanation. The leader admits they targeted him because he bowed and greeted them politely. Turan smiles slightly, thanking him for teaching him a valuable lesson. The desperate bandit asks if he will finally be allowed to live. A fatal droplet of water hovers directly over the horrified leader's head. A memory of Kiorn warning him about the diverse people he will meet flashes. The veteran's absolute warning never to show mercy to bandits echoes in his mind. Kiorn's crucial advice about the cost of false pity resurfaces. Sparing a wicked life only leads to innocent people being harmed. Shaken off the past, Turan prepares to continue his journey. His boots step forward, following the wheel tracks left in the sand. Deep tracks in the desert remind him of his final destination. Turan confronts the heavy realization that he has taken human lives. He struggles with guilt, but knows he had to follow Kiorn's warning. He remembers that ruthless killers will never stop targeting the innocent. Stepping onto solid ground, his conflicted heart begins to find peace. Turan finally emerges from the desolate wasteland under a bright blue sky. The young traveler prepares to take his first steps into civilization. Turan gasps in awe as a grand spectacle unfolds before him. The magnificent city of Murray stands proud against the mountain backdrop. Crowds of bustling citizens fill the lively streets of the New World. He realizes he has never seen so many people gathered in one place. Turan walks through the bustling crowd, taking in the vibrant atmosphere. He marvels at the grand and complex architecture of the urban buildings. The exciting reality of entering a real city washes over the young shepherd. He continues down the crowded streets, eager to explore further. Turan approaches a fruit vendor to ask for directions. He explains to the welcoming merchant that he is not a customer. Kjorn's advice about seeking an inn to rest flashes through his mind. The merchant's attitude sours instantly, aggressively ordering him to get lost. Confused by the harsh reaction, Turan wonders if cities have bizarre rules about buying goods first. The ultimate clash with the bandits was just the beginning. Now Turan must navigate the complex, rule-bound world of a grand city, starting with a simple purchase. The local currency is completely unfamiliar to him, but luckily the merchant realizes he is a country bumpkin and agrees to accept his foreign coins. Seeking a safe place to rest his head, the young traveler pays the merchant and asks for directions to the nearest inn. Following the precise directions, Turan locates the towering wooden sign of the city's largest pub and inn. Stepping through the doors, he is met by a warm, welcoming smile from a beautiful blonde-haired staff member named Lena. The charming barmaid flirts with him immediately, but Turan keeps his focus entirely on the cost of a night's stay. Agreeing to the reasonable price of 16 dupit, Turan decides to book a room at the bustling establishment. Before heading to his room, he hands over the payment and prepares to ask a crucial, high-stakes question. Lena's eyes widen in surprise as the innocent-looking boy asks if there are any active monster bounties nearby. Deep down, Turan knows he must slay monsters to absorb their raw mana and grow his magical powers while earning a living. Lena pauses and smiles mysteriously, leaving the young boy waiting in tense silence for her response. She playfully reminds him that in this harsh world, no valuable information comes without a price. Turan's ignorance of the civilized world shows as he struggles to understand the concept of a city hall. Taking a seat with his drink, he openly admits he has no idea what a city hall actually is. Lena leans over the counter in shock, highly amused by how incredibly sheltered her handsome guest really is. She explains that the city hall is the administrative hub where the local lord's officials handle public affairs. Since the sun is already set, she advises him to visit the office first thing tomorrow morning to check the bounty boards. Lena asks if he is a monster hunter himself, but the term is entirely foreign to the young shepherd. She explains the popular legend that ordinary people can miraculously become powerful wizards by hunting deadly monsters. Suddenly, a giant hand slams down on Turan's shoulder, with a loud voice dismissing the rumor as foolish superstition. A muscular, boisterous hunter named Midden confidently asserts that the legend of becoming a wizard is entirely real. Lena is thrilled to see Maidan alive, while the brave warrior boasts that he won't die until he achieves his wizard dream. Realizing he was a bit too aggressive, the towering hunter laughs and quickly apologizes to the stoic boy. Highly intrigued, Turan asks Maidan to share more details about how commoners can unlock magical powers through monster hunting. Lena chimes in, explaining that the raw energy of slain monsters is the secret key to unlocking a human's mana. Maidan introduces his rowdy squad, revealing they are all working together to hunt beasts and gain magical powers. Turan asks if any of them have successfully awakened yet, but Maidan admits only the Lord's private mages hold that status. Looking at the boy's simple attire, Maidan questions how he expects to hunt dangerous beasts with such shabby gear. Without a word, Turan pulls out his worn sling, causing the veteran hunter to recognize it as a seasoned weapon. Turan explains its rapid-fire capability, but Maidan assumes it is only useful for hunting small game like rabbits or foxes. Needing a long-range shooter for their party, Maidan extends a surprising invitation for Turan to join their hunting squad. Turan lets out a quiet, knowing smirk, ready to play his cards close to his chest in this new environment. Resting in his quiet room, Turan resolves to hunt alone, realizing he has no practical reason to team up with them. Staring up at the ceiling, he reflects on his chaotic first day of stepping into human civilization. Looking at his massive backpack, he still finds it hard to believe he has actually left his quiet village behind forever. Blue magical energy crackles around his fingertips as he wonders what intense challenges await him on the path ahead. Suddenly, a soft but distinct knocking sound on his door catches his keen attention. Turan sits up instantly in the dim room, cautiously calling out to identify the late-night visitor. A crucial memory of his travels with Kjorn flashes through his mind, warning him to stay vigilant even in safe havens. The image of the legendary veteran knight reminds him that danger lurks in the most unexpected places. Kjorn's solemn face warning him that a city is never truly safe echoes deeply in his thoughts. Turan remembers his promise to never let his guard down, steeling his resolve for whatever lies beyond the door. Summoning bright blue magic into his palm, he prepares a devastating spell just in case of a surprise attack. He slowly cracks the door open, keeping his body concealed in the shadows as he peeks outside. Turan's eyes widen in sheer shock as the moonlight reveals the unexpected identity of his late-night visitor. Standing in the dimly lit hallway is none other than Lena, smiling warmly as she greets him. Turan stands completely stunned, utterly confused as to why the barmaid is visiting his room at this hour. Blushing deeply, Lena begins to untie the ribbon on her chest, completely catching the young traveler off guard. Her cheeks flush red as she slowly undoes her collar, sending a wave of panic through the sheltered boy. Stepping into his room with a seductive smile, she cryptically tells him that things are exactly what they seem, setting up a wild night. Just when Turan thinks he is safe in his room, the seductive barmaid makes an incredibly bold proposition that puts his innocence to the ultimate test. Leaning in with an alluring gaze, she confidently asserts that she can read his true desires. Overwhelmed by her sudden advances, Turan enters a state of deep, comical meditation to block out all temptation. Lena stands completely flabbergasted by the young boy's bizarre and stone-cold reaction. Suddenly, a dramatic memory of Kjorn's screaming a fierce warning flashes through his mind. Kjorn's voice echoes in his head, warning him to be extremely wary of women in local taverns. The old warrior continues his loud lecture, explaining the dangers of catching foreign illnesses. His final warning rings clear, urging him never to let lust ruin his dangerous journey. Back in reality, an incredibly annoyed Lena storms out of the room, stomping her feet in absolute frustration. Lying awake in bed, Turan sighs and reflects on how cold and transactional city people really are. Meanwhile, in the hallway, Midan's subordinate questions his leader's true motives. The crew walks up the stairs as they discuss why they recruited the seemingly weak shepherd. The companion smugly suggests the boy would make the perfect gate for dangerous monsters. Midan listens quietly as they discuss the recruit's potential role in their upcoming hunts. Smiling warmly, Midan explains that he simply wanted to help the kids survive out there. A faint, knowing smirk forms on the young boy's face as he rests. Staring peacefully at the ceiling, Turan decides that perhaps the city isn't entirely cold-hearted. The next morning, the grand and bustling city hall stands tall under a clear sky. Stepping inside, Turan is greeted by a stern-looking desk official. Turan politely questions if the man is an official, leaving the clerk slightly confused. The clerk looks surprised when the boy announces his intention to hunt monsters. This reminds Turan of Kiram's wise advice about the harsh nature of the world. The memory of Kjorn tending to sheep while explaining human behavior plays in his mind. Kjorn points out that people only show respect to those with true power, like wizards. Back at the counter, the clerk slides over a piece of paper detailing a bounty. The clerk strictly orders him to look at the flyer and return it immediately. Turan examines the illustration of a strange, multi-clawed avian beast. The clerk warns him that slain monsters must be brought back to avoid dangerous consequences. Turan confidently replies that he is already well aware of the deadly rules. An image of a grotesque, bloodthirsty wraith represents the true horror of abandoned monster corpses. The clerk scoffs, explaining that knights have more important duties than hunting beasts. He taps on the bounty sheet, emphasizing the separation of duties. The official condescendingly remarks that monster hunting is a dirty job reserved for thugs. As Turan leaves, the clerk sighs, expecting yet another young hunter to perish outside. Deep in the wilderness, the glowing, lifeless eye of a defeated beast signals a swift victory. The corpse of a massive blade crow lies slain with a single devastating puncture wound. The city hall officials gasp in absolute disbelief at the gruesome proof before them. The entire office gathers around the massive carcass, completely shocked by the young hunter's speed. The clerk hesitantly asks if he defeated the beast entirely on his own. Turan calmly confirms his solo victory and inquires about his hard-earned bounty. The trembling clerk quickly hands over a heavy bag of coins, offering his congratulations. The bystanders marvel at the pristine condition of the creature's valuable blade wings. The main clerk stares intensely, realizing he completely misjudged the boy's abilities. He slowly looks up at Turan, who is still standing patiently in the lobby. Turan casually asks if there are any other high-value monsters nearby to hunt. The staff members freeze in sheer shock at his endless ambition. Soon after, a glorious feast of rich meats, hot stew, and fresh bread is laid out. Lena cheerfully presents the massive spread, utterly amazed by his incredible achievements. Turan happily digs into the delicious food, enjoying the rewards of his hard work. He reflects on his journey, realizing that his ultimate goals go far beyond mere wealth. Turan marvels at his massive power growth after absorbing Monster Mela. He realizes his magical capacity has multiplied since his journey began. Turan notes that hunting weak monsters has reached its evolutionary limit. Back at the tavern, Lena reacts with absolute shock to a sudden revelation. Lena accuses the young hunter of devouring the entire feast single-handedly. The jovial cook laughs, delighted by Turan's monstrous appetite. Turan politely compliments the delicious meal as he departs. Suddenly, a hostile hand aggressively grabs Turan's collar from behind. A rowdy thug mockingly confronts Turan for eating so luxuriously alone. The thug jealously sneers at Turan's recent massive bounty earnings. The thug demands charity before Turan violently slaps his hand away. The thug stumbles backward in pain, cursing Turan's swift retaliation. Turan mockingly asks if they still desire his charity. An enraged thug lunges forward with a desperate wild punch. Turan effortlessly blocks the heavy strike with a single ham. Desperate to win, the thug swings a heavy wooden stool. Turan easily stops the flying wooden stool with his bare palm. Turan firmly grabs the terrified thug by his ear. With a powerful finger flick, Turan sends the thug flying backward. An incredibly angry smile creeps onto Lena's face. Lena furiously screams at them to stop destroying her inn. Maiden bows deeply, sincerely apologizing for his men's reckless behavior. Turan listens as Madan explains he thoroughly scolded his subordinates. Maiden explains their financial struggles and how jealousy fueled the fight. The bruised thugs hesitantly offer Turan a reluctant apology. Turan inquires if their financial situation is truly that dire.
Maiden admits they cannot afford their inn lodging in 3 days.
Without hesitation, Turan tosses a heavy pouch of coins to Midan. A bewildered Midan asks why Turan is showing such kindness.
Turan calmly states that nothing in this harsh world is free.
Turan requests information in exchange, prompting an eager grin from Maiden. The serene morning sun shines over the bustling medieval city.
Turan stands at the city outskirts, his coat fluttering in the wind.
He reflects that this upcoming hunt may be his last in this region. Turan decides to move to the next city using Midan's coordinates. He notes Midan provided valuable details and is a genuinely good person. Turan fondly smiles, finding Midan to be remarkably pure and kind. Suddenly, Turan freezes in shock as his senses register something terrible. A foul, alarming stench of blood fills the crisp morning air. Desperately hoping he is wrong, Turan sprints through the dense forest. He stops to examine massive, fresh claw marks gouged into a tree. An ominous silence hangs over the dark, shadowy clearing. Turan's eyes widen as he discovers a bloodied corpse slumped against a tree. He instantly recognizes the deceased victim as one of Madan's Matin. Turan stares in grim silence, processing the horrifying scene. The victim's lifeless eye stares blankly into the forest canopy. Several bloody silver coins lie scattered near the victim's hand. Turan kneels beside Madan, who lies dying in a pool of blood. Suddenly, a faint, desperate croak from the shadows catches his attention. The final survivor weakly gasps the word rabbit before losing consciousness. A grotesque, furry beast aggressively chews on its fresh, bloody prey. Turan stumbles upon a horrific massacre, freezing as a demonic beast stands over Midan's slaughtered crew. The massive horn-eared rabbit monster stares back with blood-drenched fur and glowing red eyes. Sensing a sudden lethal threat, Turan quickly glances back as danger closes in. The feral beast charges forward like lightning, determined to tear its next victim apart. Turan's eyes widen in alarm as he notes the creature's overwhelming speed. He narrowly evades the lethal strike, realizing how close he just came to death. Turan instantly gathers high-speed wind magic around his hand to mount a counterattack. He whips his arm forward, unleashing a deadly spinning gale toward his target.
A powerful arc of pressurized wind cuts through the air directly at the charging beast.
To his surprise, the monster raises its armored ears to block the magic head-on.
The creature effortlessly shatters the wind blade, completely unfazed by the ranged assault. Turan immediately deduces that the beast is highly experienced in counteracting ranged projectile attacks. Exploiting its massive leg strength, the rabbit launches itself high into the forest canopy. The monster drops down like a meteor, targeting Turan with a devastating plunging strike.
The beast's crimson eye dilates in shock as its prey suddenly vanishes from sight. Leaving only a massive shockwave behind, Turan dodges the deadly impact with absolute ease. The creature skids wildly across the dirt, completely missing its target.
Reappearing directly above the beast, Turan swoops down with a razor-sharp blade in hand.
He ruthlessly plunges his dagger deep into the monster's neck, eliciting a painful shriek. Landing gracefully, the young traveler watches as the wounded beast stumbles backward in agony. Turan moves in a blinding blur of speed to deliver the final crushing blow. The powerful kinetic force sends the monster flying violently into a massive tree trunk. The beast absorbs the shattering impact, its body heavily damaged by the brutal collision. It skids lifelessly across the dirt road, leaving a trail of destruction behind. A massive cloud of dust and debris settles over the silent forest path. A high-pitched, agonizing shriek echoes throughout the trees, marking the beast's final moments. The giant horned rabbit lies defeated and broken amidst the fallen timber. Fresh crimson blood slowly drips from its lifeless limbs onto the forest floor. With its tongue lolling out, the formidable monster draws its final quiet breath. Black, mystical smoke begins to evaporate from the fallen creature's dissolving remains. Turan stands victoriously over the slain monster, his expression solemn but determined. He holds his bare hand over the corpse to initiate the mana absorption process. A torrent of vibrant green energy surges upward, wrapping around Turan's outstretched hand. Turan notices that the staggering amount of absorbed mana easily surpasses the leopard monster he fought before. His eyes widen in pure disbelief at the massive surge of magical power flowing into him. Spotting the Mai's magical display, a dying Midan gasps in shock upon realizing Turan's true identity. Turan confirms his status and asks why Madan is questioning his hidden identity. Turan asks if any of the deceased have family to receive their belongings, which Midden weakly denies. Covered in blood, Midden takes a final look at his savior before succumbing to his wounds.
Turan recalls Medan warmly describing a grand nearby city named Orem and its legendary library.
In his memory, Madan details that the massive archive contains thousands of ancient books.
Medan had playfully teased Turan for only showing genuine interest once literature was brought up.
Turan asks how to get in, and Midden notes that only wizards are permitted entry. Realizing this library holds the key to his magical training, Turan's resolve solidifies. The young traveler immediately decided to make Orem his next destination. Maiden's voice echoes in his mind, confirming his departure for the great city of Orem.
Back in reality, Turan stands alone in the misty forest, processing his grief and new purpose.
3 humble stone graves now stand as a solemn tribute to the fallen hunters. Turan whispers a final goodbye to Midon, swearing to honor his legacy on the dangerous path ahead. Leaving behind the fresh graves of his fallen allies, Turan bids a solemn farewell to Midden. The scene transitions as a clear, bright sky signals a brand new chapter in his journey. Arriving at his destination, Turan is greeted by an immense crowd of travelers queuing up. He admits to himself that the massive scale of this new city completely eclipses Murray. An aerial view reveals the breathtaking expanse and stunning architecture of the noble estate. Turan is taken aback by the overwhelming number of people trying to gain entry. Carrying his heavy pack, he carefully approaches the heavily guarded castle checkpoint. Watching the gatekeepers, he wonders if they are actively screening for dangerous criminals.
He notes that a grand city like this naturally employs a highly sophisticated entry system.
Suddenly, a guard calls a halt, catching Turan completely by surprise. The stern gatekeeper commands Turan to stop, declaring that he cannot pass. The guard mocks Turan's dirty travel attire, ordering him to clean himself up. Turan's eyes are drawn to a colossal, vine-covered tower piercing the city skyline. He immediately recognizes the monumental tower as the legendary library Maiden told him about. Staring in awe, he surmises that such an impossible structure must be built on pure magic. Turan approaches the majestic blue and gold entrance doors, politely calling out to the sentries. He expresses his desire to enter, but the guard explains that library access is restricted strictly to mages. When Turan casually reveals that he is indeed a wizard, the guard reacts with sheer disbelief. The guard furiously threatens him, warning him of the lethal consequences of impersonating a mage. Dismissing him as a lunatic, the guard raises his hand to forcefully block Turan's path. Sensing the disrespect, Turan begins to channel a faint trace of his dormant magical power. He recalls that true wizards possess the unique ability to instantly perceive and gauge each other's strength.
Turan focuses his gaze, preparing to unleash a terrifying demonstration of his true capabilities.
A terrifying aura of dark crimson mana explodes from Turan, casting a shadow of absolute dread. The guard gasps in agony, utterly crushed by the sudden, suffocating pressure of Turan's power. The gatekeeper collapses to the stone floor in terror, while his companion rushes to check on him. Shaking with fear, the guard realizes he is dealing with an elite, noble-class wizard. Sweating profusely, the guard quickly introduces himself as Kenya, a knight of House Veltus. Kenya bows his head in deep respect, humbly asking which prestigious noble house Turan hails from. Turan calmly asks if revealing his family lineage is a mandatory requirement to enter. Kenya explains that utilizing the Great Library ultimately requires permission from the Master of Voltus. Kenya promises to contact the noble house immediately, leaving a weary Turan to sigh at the delay. Turan laments how what should have been a simple task has turned into a massive ordeal. Deep within the luxurious Voltas estate, an attentive maid prepares for the arrival of their guest. The gentle hands of the servants begin to wash away the grime of Turan's long journey. Turan sits bewildered in a lavish hot spring bath, completely overwhelmed by the sudden royal treatment. Feeling highly uncomfortable, Turan awkwardly commands the surrounding maids to stop their bathing assistants. Turan asks if he can bathe alone, but the maids fear severe punishment for neglecting a guest. Outside, the brilliant afternoon sun bathes the majestic palace grounds in a golden glow. After Turan finishes bathing, a maid stares at his clean form in absolute breathless admiration. Realizing her unprofessional reaction, the maid quickly covers her mouth in embarrassment. Now dressed in exquisite noble attire, Turan ties back his silver hair and asks if something is wrong. The head maid bows deeply, flustered as she admits she was completely captivated by his breathtaking looks. Turan politely tells them there is nothing to forgive, though the maids insist on proper formal boundaries. Suddenly, Turan's sharp senses register an unfamiliar and powerful presence approaching the chamber doors. The doors slide open as a vibrant, pink-haired girl strides confidently into the room with her guard. The young lady smiles mockingly, asking if he is the guest who arrived looking like a complete beggar. She teases that clean clothes have miraculously transformed him into a prince, ignoring her guard's nervous warnings. Turan calmly introduces himself, prompting the pink-haired noble lady to identify herself as Azella. When Azella asks about his family line, Turan guardedly replies that personal reasons prevent him from revealing his house.
With a mischievous grin, the pink-haired lady dismisses any concern for her target's hidden origins. Azella decides to play a little prank on him to force his hand. Suddenly, a roaring vortex of golden fire erupts inside the luxurious chamber, catching everyone by surprise. Staring with intense, glowing amber eyes, Azella demands that he show her his true strength. As the fierce pressure builds, she challenges Turan to unleash his mana. The incredibly tense standoff hangs in a brief moment of suspended animation. Turan grits his teeth, heavily pressured by the raw, suffocating heat of her magical aura. Refusing to be crushed, Turan's eye flashes with a brilliant, freezing blue light. A sudden shockwave of raw power ripples violently through the room. An explosive clash of red-hot fire and chilling blue mana violently collides, dividing the chamber in two. Turan's immense mana surges forward, effortlessly neutralizing the oppressive heat. The terrified maids shriek in fear as Kenya desperately shields them from the powerful magic shockwave. A gentle breeze ripples across the ornate ceiling as the violent energies finally begin to settle. Turan slowly exhales, calmly regaining his composure after the sudden confrontation. Azella can only stare in sheer, breathless awe at the incredible display of power. She laughs in pure delight, staring at her own trembling, gloved hands. Turan calmly speaks up, demanding the pink-haired noble girl's attention. Azella leans in with a brilliant smile and boldly asks if he wants to marry her. The world seemingly freezes as Turan stands completely paralyzed by her bizarre proposal. Sweating profusely, a deeply confused Turan can only stare in absolute silence. Azella bursts into hysterical laughter, telling him she was only joking. She playfully teases him to consider it anyway, noting that the seat next to her is still vacant. Azella and her bodyguards stroll out of the chamber, leaving behind a bewildered traveler and bowing maids. Turan stands silently, processing the whirlwind encounter that just transpired. His sharp gaze narrows as he focuses on his own physical state. Turan looks down at his hand, noticing it is trembling uncontrollably from the brief clash. He realizes she possesses mana equal to his own, questioning if such monster strength is merely average here. The scene transitions to the majestic golden shield crest of House Valtus. Turan is escorted into a lavish study, standing before a large wooden desk. The master of Aurum, Lug Valtus, warmly welcomes the young noble to his office. Turan introduces himself and confirms his desire to access the legendary library. Lug Valtus warns him that the library contains no ultimate magic or secret mana techniques. Turan politely replies that he expected nothing of the sort, and the Lord agrees to let him enter. The Lord suggests Turan rest for the night, prompting Turan to express his deep gratitude. The next morning, the sun shines brightly on the colossal vine-covered library tower. The gatekeepers bow respectfully, officially welcoming Turan to the Sky Library. The massive gold-accented doors slowly creak open, revealing a bright light within. Turan gasps in pure wonder as he takes his very first step inside. An immense spiral staircase winds endlessly upward toward a blindingly bright skylight. Turan walks deeper into the quiet monumental archive, surrounded by towering brick walls. He marvels at the endless rows of bookshelves and long wooden reading tables. Suddenly, a cheerful voice calls out, welcoming him by name. A quirky black-haired girl in flowing white robes waves energetically, introducing herself as the librarian. She explains that she has been ordered by the head of the house to outline the rules. Turan is stunned by her childish appearance while she lists the rules about damage and book removals. She invades his personal space to warn him she'll be watching him constantly, leaving him highly uncomfortable. Turan asks if she has read all these books, and she proudly offers to locate anything he needs. She lists various genres like romance and history as they stroll down the quiet aisles. With a sly grin, she teasingly asks if a young man like him is searching for erotica. Turan deadpans, clarifying that he simply wants basic common knowledge about this world, leaving her stumped and setting up his first step into the secrets of Aurum. A legendary archive of ancient secrets finally opens its doors, promising to change our hero's destiny forever. The quirky librarian guides Turan to a specific section of centuries-old books that might contain the exact information he needs, earning a polite thank you from the young mage. Turan carefully picks up a mysterious, dusty tome, preparing to delve deep into its contents. Staring at the bizarre runic lettering on the cover, Turan marvels at this incredible source of common knowledge. He eagerly flips through the yellowed pages, revealing beautifully detailed maps and complex diagrams. His breath hitches in absolute shock as his eyes scan a revelation that defies everything he previously knew. A brilliant smile spreads across Turan's face as he realizes the sheer, unimaginable depth of the information before him. Day after day, Turan isolates himself in the massive, quiet library, completely absorbed in his relentless quest for knowledge. Through his study, he begins to master this world's geography and the diverse races that inhabit its vast territories. His mind fills with legendary accounts of elusive sea-dwelling mermaids observing human sailors from rocky shores. He uncovers the unique customs, intricate crafting methods, and complex production techniques of legendary mages. He even unearths the secrets of formidable magical beasts and the sacred, glowing relics of the lost old empire. Slowly closing his eyes, Turin feels the once confusing void of this alien world finally crystallizing into absolute clarity. Deep within his study, Lord Lugvaltus notes that his young guest has been making exceptional use of his time.
Turin stands respectfully before the Lord, who subtly reminds him that granting access to the royal archives was an act of goodwill.
With a calculating gaze, the Master of Aurum declares that he would now like to collect on that favor. He explains that a terrifying magical beast has recently invaded northern Aurum, ruthlessly attacking helpless travelers. As Turan questions if he is being asked to hunt it, the Lord grimly reveals that 4 elite knights were already devoured by the monster. Rubbing his temple in distress, the Lord admits they can only spare 2 high-ranking nobles, making Turan's power essential for their safety. Recognizing his responsibility, Turan accepts the perilous mission, declaring that protecting the innocent is the ultimate duty of any mage. Yet, as he prepares, a nagging sense of suspicion arises because elite mages typically avoid such mundane matters. Lord Lug adds that the blocked northern trade route is vital to Aurum, demanding a swift and decisive resolution. Turan smiles coldly as he realizes the blockade began 10 days ago, long before he even arrived, revealing the Lord's calculated manipulation. Heavy leather boots march forward, signaling the beginning of a dangerous excursion into the wild. Under a clear sky, the heavily armed strike force departs through the Grand Castle gates to face the lurking threat. Walking beside him, Azella confidently tightens her black leather gloves, mentally preparing for the upcoming battle. She audibly complains about her father's underhanded methods, annoyed that he manipulated a guest into joining their dangerous hunt. Turning to Turan, she playfully clarifies that she isn't criticizing his skill, but rather her father's dramatic nature. Her brother, Marvin, sheepishly chuckles and advises his sister to show their father a bit more respect. When Azella snaps back in anger, Marvin instantly cowers in cartoonish terror, trembling at her fierce glare. Regaining his composure, Marvin politely introduces himself to Turan, offering a warm and welcoming gesture. The sunny atmosphere fades as a heavy boot splashes onto the damp, muddy floor of a dense forest. Azella leads the group deeper into the foggy woods, eager to slaughter the beast quickly so they can return home. Stepping up beside Turan, Marvin casually inquires if he has any romantic interest in his wild sister, prompting a blunt rejection. Marvin beams with pure comical relief at the swift denial, glad his new ally has no desire to join their chaotic family. Suddenly, the tense silence of the dense forest is shattered by a stern command to halt. The party arrives at a gruesome scene where a shattered wooden carriage lies abandoned on the muddy trail. 2 advanced scouts examine the debris, noting that the victims were likely traveling from the north.
Turan stands quietly in deep thought, his eyes scanning the wreckage for any subtle magical traces left behind.
On a splintered wooden plank, a massive charred handprint reveals the terrifying physical size of their target. Inspecting the shape, the lead scout confidently declares that the culprit is a monstrous monkey beast. Turan points out the bizarre shape of the print, leaving a bewildered, cartoonish Azella sweating in pure confusion. He surmises that the beast retreated deep into the thick forest and suggests they begin tracking its route immediately. Azella admits her tracking magic is subpar and looks to Marvin, who nervously tries to pass the responsibility to the knights. Stepping forward, Turan confidently offers to handle the tracking himself, reaching for a discarded scrap of cloth. Impressed by his initiative, Azella eagerly asks if his secretive family lineage specializes in tracking magic. Turan brings the fiber close to his face, quietly channeling his mana to initiate the locating spell. His sharp eye flashes with a brilliant predatory light as his magic instantly locks onto the target's residual energy. A glowing ethereal blue ribbon of mana erupts, weaving through the dense foliage to reveal the beast's hidden path. Pointing confidently into the dark, foreboding woods, Turan leads his team directly toward a high-stakes showdown with a deadly monster. The magical tracking trail suddenly vanishes into a rushing mountain stream, leaving the party stranded. Azella expresses her deep skepticism that a mere wild beast could think to cover its tracks. The silver-haired knight playfully suggests the beast was simply trying to tidy up in the river. Suddenly, Turan's senses alert him to an incredibly dangerous threat lurking nearby. Turan screams a desperate warning for Marvin and Azella to look behind them. A blood-curdling screech echoes through the trees, signaling the arrival of their target. The massive red-eyed monkey beast drops from the canopy directly onto the unsuspecting knights. The towering monster hoists a massive boulder, preparing to crush the entire strike force. A terrified knight screams at the top of his lungs for everyone to run. The monstrous beast hurls the heavy rock down with catastrophic force. A brutal explosion of debris and blood sends the heavily armored knights flying. Reacting instantly, Turan leaps backward to avoid the devastating projectile. Turan lands gracefully, his eyes narrowing as he analyzes the chaotic situation. On the muddy floor, a severely wounded knight groans in absolute agony. Shadows of the nobles loom over the fallen, bloody soldiers on the battlefield. Whipping around, a determined Azella prepares to unleash her terrifying combat magic. The silver-haired knight observes his allies, quietly reflecting on their formidable bloodline. Azella bellows a fierce command to launch a full-scale counterattack. The surviving knights bravely charge forward to corner the rampaging monster. Sensing the danger, the clever beast swiftly retreats back into the dense foliage.
A knight fires a specialized snare trap to halt the beast's escape.
The target moves with unbelievable speed, easily outrunning the group's tracking capabilities.
Azella gasps in shock as a sudden blinding light intercepts another projectile.
A majestic, glowing blue pillar of mana erupts down the forest path.
The immense beam of magical energy completely seals off the creature's path.
The powerful magical strike blasts directly into the monster's gaping maw. Marvin and Azella stare in absolute disbelief at the staggering magical feat.
Turan calmly walks forward, effortlessly spinning a ring of condensed magical energy. Turan tilts his head slightly, exuding an aura of absolute dominance. With a calm gaze, the mysterious traveler prepares to finish the job. The monster shrieks in pain as it crashes heavily onto the ground. Azella leaps forward, pointing her hand and screaming a death sentence. Brilliant, scorching flames whip around her arm as she channels her magic. A colossal fire dragon erupts, charging directly toward the pinned monster.
A colossal explosion of white-hot fire consumes the entire forest clearing.
Turan watches the blaze, identifying it as House Vultus' legendary pyromaniac bloodline magic.
The exhausted knights finally breathe a sigh of relief as the battle ends.
Walking over, Azella admits the incoming boulder gave her quite a chill.
Marvin teases his sister about being scared, prompting a hilarious bickering argument.
The surviving troops work together to bandage their heavily bleeding comrades. Turan surveys the devastating scene, noting the sheer mess left behind.
Looking at the bloodied casualties, Turan realizes this suffering could have easily been avoided. He narrows his eyes, harboring a deeply critical thought about the nobles. Turan silently condemns the powerful siblings for using weaker humans as shields.
Sensing his intense gaze, Marvin looks up and asks if something is wrong.
Turan quickly masks his disgust, politely brushing the question aside.
Azella warmly invites Turan to join them in absorbing the monster's residual mana. The three stand over the massive charred remains of the defeated beast.
Turan extends his hand, absorbing a brilliant stream of pure green mana.
He marvels at how absorbing the beast's mana boosts his power with zero diminishing returns.
Power comes with a price, and even the strongest have their limits. The black-haired man and the pink-haired girl dejectedly admit they can no longer absorb any more mana.
Watching from a distance, the black-haired man finally understands his father's strategic genius, realizing their allies' mana capacity and spell proficiency are truly monstrous. He marvels at the silver-haired mage, astonished that a noble of his caliber has not even reached his true growth potential.
With the beast slain, the battered strike force slowly makes its way back toward the majestic spires of the sunset-lit castle.
The black-haired man warmly praises Turan, asserting that victory would have been impossible without his tracking skills and decisive blows.
The humble silver-haired traveler quickly downplays his pivotal role, dismissing his extraordinary feats as nothing spectacular.
Turan expresses regret for letting the monster ambush them, revealing it possessed a rare search ability that catches Marvin completely off guard. Turan explains his theory that a monster's unique abilities are directly influenced and awakened by its physical external traits.
He deduces that the mutated beast's enlarged hands and eyes granted it the power to hurl massive boulders and see clearly through the dense forest canopy. While Marvin stands in awe of his rapid analysis, Turan calmly reveals he simply read about it in a monster encyclopedia inside the castle library. Marvin chuckles at the mention of the stuffy library, while his sister confesses she abandoned her only visit there because the books were far too complex. Smiling gently, Turan advises the pink-haired girl to simply ask the librarian for easier books on her next visit.
The pink-haired girl tilts her head in confusion, prompting Turan to clarify that he refers to the person who manages the facility.
When the pink-haired girl questions if anyone like that actually exists, Turan freezes as a chilling realization washes over him.
The scene shifts abruptly to the towering vine-covered archive standing silent in the golden hues of the setting sun. Upon entering the quiet library, Turan is immediately greeted by the cheerful black-haired spirit girl who happily welcomes him back.
Turan mentally chides himself for his carelessness, remembering that no commoner in the city would ever dare call a noble by their direct name.
He silently observes the cheerful girl holding a book, noting that her whimsical appearance does not fit the description of a standard librarian at all.
Turning to her with a sharp and calculating gaze, Turan demands to know exactly how she learned his name. The black-haired girl gasps in sheer shock, realizing she has accidentally exposed her mysterious secret. Quickly regaining her playful composure, she sits back and mischievously teases him for taking so long to notice. While Turan remains deeply suspicious, the mysterious entity reveals she easily read his identity off his official entry permit. Floating a book effortlessly with her magic, she boastfully declares that her sight extends to every single corner of the library.
As glowing blue trails guide books back to their shelves, Turan calmly asks how he should address her.
She casually replies that she has no name of her own, giving him free rein to call her whatever he pleases. She suggestively offers a romantic nickname, but Turan's cold, blunt choice of librarian leaves her pouting at his stiff demeanor.
Leaning uncomfortably close, she accuses him of treating her like a servant for days, a claim that Turan immediately denies. Sweating nervously, Turan raises a hand to push her back, telling her to maintain a respectful distance.
Turan asks if she was a mage from the fallen empire, only to learn she was never human and is actually a powerful spirit.
The lore reveals that a soul inhabiting a living vessel becomes a living spirit, while one bound to the inanimate takes on a different form.
Floating high above the tables, she delivers a shocking revelation. She is the very embodiment of the massive library itself.
She explains her human appearance is customized to match his subconscious desires, teasing him about his highly specific and unusual taste. Turan tells her to stop inventing stories, though she insists her physical form is merely a fluid reflection of his mind. Falling silent, Turan processes this massive revelation as he contemplates the bizarre nature of the sentient library. Reaching out to test her claim, Turan's hand passes directly through her solid-looking torso, rippling like water. Blushing slightly as his hand rests inside her spiritual form, she awkwardly notes that his touch feels incredibly strange.
After Turan quickly apologizes, she complains about her frustrating limitation of being unable to directly attack physical intruders.
Looking toward the countless rows of volumes, she admits she would ruthlessly punish anyone who dared mistreat her books. Turan deduces that not even the ruling House Voltus or past visitors have ever been aware of her presence. She twirls playfully, explaining that until today, absolutely no one possessed the rare magical qualifications required to perceive her.
Leaning in to tease him once more, she notes that her creator made her visible only to those with an exceptionally complete lineage.
Turan's eyes widen in absolute astonishment as she reveals that this mysterious type is what wizards call a bloodline.
Turan asks her to reveal details of his heritage, but when she tells him to ask his parents, he flatly admits he is an orphan.
Licking her lips with a mischievous blush, she eagerly offers to personally examine his body to uncover his hidden ancestry.
Horrified by her highly suggestive phrasing, Turan recoils in pure panic as she creeps closer with wiggling fingers. With a hilariously creepy grin, the spirit advances on the terrified traveler, who desperately wonders if this process is even legitimate.
Turan lets out a terrified shriek as her hand violently plunges straight through his chest. She happily declares they are now connected, though a deadpan Turan quickly tells her to stop making things weird, noting it doesn't even hurt.
Her expression turns serious as she analyzes his soul, detecting massive traces of the legendary pursuer and hunter bloodlines from House Sahar. Her eyes widen in absolute disbelief as she uncovers a third, highly dangerous bloodline hidden deep within his soul. Turan freezes in complete shock as the spirit reveals his soul contains a mixed bloodline.
She explains his lineage stems from 2 legendary families, but the second power remains completely sealed. She reassures him that locked powers naturally awaken as a mage's strength grows.
Staring into the distance, Turan mutters in quiet realization, immediately thinking of his mother.
He recalls his mother's polite, highly educated demeanor, suspecting she harbored a diluted Nogal bloodline.
Showing deep respect, the young wizard bows to the spirit as she playfully begs him to stay.
Armed with this world-shattering revelation, Turan chooses to abandon his solitary study.
Under her direct guidance, he begins asking intense questions about the world's hidden natural laws.
Using magical floating water, the spirit demonstrates the physical mechanics of light and vision. He stands utterly awestruck, realizing that learning the raw laws of nature is a priceless treasure. He discovers how microscopic germs cause deadly diseases and decompose living matter. The complex diagrams illustrate friction heat, light refraction, and how flesh heals itself. Armed with scientific principles, Turan prepares to test a spell on a fresh apple. Extending his finger, he gently taps the stem of the red fruit. Within a fraction of a second, the apple completely shrivels and rots. They marvel at the result, noting that understanding the scientific principle consumes far less mana.
He realizes that merely changing his perspective has instantly amplified his power.
Turan deduces that greedy noble houses intentionally monopolize this basic science to maintain dominance. He silently laments how hoarding knowledge has caused society's general magical aptitude to decay. The spirit agrees, realizing this explains the massive decline in human wizardry. Gazing up at the towering archives, the traveler knows his time in Orem is finally concluded. Flooded with flying books, the spirit gasps in sorrow upon learning of his sudden departure. She throws herself forward, screaming at him to take her along on his journey. Unbothered, Turan steps aside as the dramatic spirit faceplants hard onto the stone floor. From the floor, she desperately pleads with him to stay, but the silver-haired traveler flatly declines. Huffed and pouting, the dramatic spirit floats away, annoyed by his stubborn refusal. She advises him to seek ancient divine ruins where other ancient spirits might reside. Pushing open the massive library doors, Turan promises to return and visit her occasionally. Turning her back in a playful huff, she pretends not to care whether he returns or not. A soft, genuine smile warms the silver-haired mage's face as he bids her farewell. He silently reassures himself that countless unread mysteries still await him here.
Turan officially departs the kingdom carrying a massive traveler's backpack past the stone archways.
Consulting his continental map, he plans his next move toward House Czar's base in the Emerald Desert.
Facing the grand open wilderness, he prepares to embark on his dangerous journey.
Looking up at the bright sky, Turan resolves to uncover the truth about his parentage. The lone silver-haired traveler walks confidently down the cobblestone road toward the unknown.
He navigates the dense woodlands, tracking the path leading directly toward the arid east. Every step forward brings him closer to solving the mystery of his legendary bloodline. Deep within the golden forest, the lone traveler moves silently along a dirt path. As night falls, Turan rests quietly by a crackling campfire next to a rushing river. The next day, he discovers eerie, mutated skeletal remains scattered across the forest floor. Suddenly, a sharp sound in the nearby foliage causes him to freeze in his tracks. A wild, panicked horse lets out a loud, defensive whinny through the trees. Parting the bushes, Turan cautiously peers out to investigate the disturbance. He witnesses a magnificent brown horse rearing up to defend a fallen rider.
Turan notes the saddle, realizing the beast is bravely protecting its master from hostile intruders. Keeping low, Turan observes two mysterious figures confronting the fierce animal.
The young mage's eyes narrow in shock as he registers their abnormal physical traits. Two sinister white-haired dark elves prepare to attack, visibly frustrated by the horse's strength. One of the dark elves channels dark purple magic, preparing to unleash a deadly strike.
The tranquil wilderness suddenly morphs into a nightmare of absolute terror.
Turan recognizes the horrifying dark elf necromancy as a horse defends itself.
Concealed in the brush, Turan hesitates to intervene in this unknown conflict.
His gray eyes widen as a horrific sight unfolds before him. A white-haired dark elf viciously tears into a severed human arm. The savage creatures bicker amongst themselves over sharing their gruesome cannibalistic meal. Revolted by their nature, Turan confirms his suspicions about these vicious cannibals.
Whispering a soft incantation, the silver-haired mage activates his concealment magic.
The dark elves continue their grotesque feast, completely oblivious to their stalker. A sudden lethal slash of magic strikes from out of nowhere.
Blood splatters as the surviving dark elf reels in utter disbelief.
Eerie black spikes rise from the dark shadows on the path. His yellow eyes burn with intense fury at the sudden ambush. Unleashing a roar, the elf summons a horde of beastly familiars. A magically infused projectile tears through the air at blinding speed. The flying rock strikes one of the horned summons dead on. The enraged dark elf demands to know his hidden assailant's identity. A colossal shockwave tears through the forest floor, obliterating the vegetation. Realizing his opponent is using concealment magic, the dark elf panics. The elf sends a tracking beast to sniff out the intruder. A weave of golden tracking magic sweeps across the entire forest. Safely hidden, Turan lets out a confident, calculating smirk. The dark elf suddenly turns around as the tracking magic reacts.
Turan breaks his concealment, boldly declaring he has found his target.
The dark elf frantically orders his summoned beasts to kill him. Turan quickly drops to the ground to initiate his counter-track. He channels his mana to conjure a massive sphere of fire. A colossal torrent of flame erupts, engulfing the entire dirt road. The summoned beasts are instantly consumed and scorched by the inferno. Turan swiftly leaps aside to dodge the remaining rampaging beast. Turan notes that neutralizing one dark elf early balanced the scales. Sudden alarm flashes in his eyes as he senses danger approaching. The summoned wolf bites deep into Turan's calf, drawing blood. With a swift kick, Turan violently flings the snarling beast away. He gasps as another threat looms directly behind him. The massive green bull beast charges directly at the vulnerable mage. The devastating impact sends Turan flying through the air. Coughing up a trail of blood, the young wizard is wounded. Crashing hard onto the dirt, Turan writhes in agonizing pain. The dark elf mocks Turan, celebrating his agonizing downfall. The brave brown horse suddenly delivers a devastating kick to the elf. The horse relentlessly stomps the screaming elf into the dirt. Distracted, the summoned beasts turn to witness their master's beatdown. The familiars viciously attack the horse to protect their master. The bruised elf crawls forward, swearing vengeance for his humiliation. A sudden beam of blue magical energy obliterates the dark elf. A fountain of dark purple blood erupts into the air.
The headless corpse falls limp as Turan lowers his hand.
The horse limps away as the summons dissolve back into darkness. Exhausted and battered, Turan catches his breath from the brutal clash. Exhausted from the brutal battle, the silver-haired traveler collapses to the muddy forest floor. Panting heavily, the wounded wizard genuinely fears his journey might end right here. Suddenly, a warm, reassuring snout gently nudges his silver hair in the quiet woods. The brave brown horse stands loyally over the battered mage, offering her silent comfort. Turan smiles softly, gently petting the magnificent beast to express his heartfelt gratitude. Nearby, the unconscious blonde rider slowly opens his eyes and begins to wake up. The peaceful forest glistens beneath the radiant glow of a brilliant full moon. With a sudden gasp of absolute terror, the blonde traveler bolts upright, completely panicked. He finds himself sitting safely by a warm, crackling campfire opposite the silver-haired mage. Calmly chewing on his food, Turan quietly notes that his patient is finally awake. Confused and disoriented, the survivor inquires about his savior's identity and the rescue.
Overjoyed to see his companion, the blond man tearfully embraces his loyal horse, Tilly.
Turan smiles warmly, admiring the horse's cleverness in protecting her master from danger. The survivor introduces himself as Aziz of the Burke family, while Turan shares his name. Curious about the situation, Turan asks why the Dark Elves targeted them in the forest.
Aziz explains that they were suddenly ambushed without any provocation during their peaceful journey. Tears stream down Aziz's face as he laments the brutal, savage nature of outer races. Tilly sniffs her master comfortingly, while Aziz curses the cruel fate of his fallen companions.
Overwhelmed by grief, Aziz apologizes for breaking down over the companions he lost today.
Turan asks if they were family, and Aziz explains they raised him since childhood. Watching the grieving noble, Turan silently notes that Aziz possesses a truly kind soul. Aziz asks about the attackers, and Turan confirms he successfully eliminated both of them.
Sitting by the glowing fire, the two travelers realize the immediate threat is past.
Turan closes his eyes to initiate a deep magical scan of the dark woods. Opening his eyes, he confirms that no other Dark Elves lurk in the vicinity. Aziz asks about Turan's current plans, and Turan reveals he is also traveling alone. Aziz is utterly astonished that someone of Turan's incredible power travels without companions.
Humbly shaking his head, Turan downplays his formidable strength as they talk. Turan explains that he struggled in battle and only won with Tilly's timely help. Suddenly, Turan channels his mana, releasing a vibrant, blazing blue aura of power.
Aziz gasps in shock as a bright golden-orange aura erupts around his own body. A spectacular clash of elemental auras swirls between the two mages at the campfire.
Feeling the immense magical pressure, Turan realizes Aziz is surprisingly powerful under his fragile exterior.
Turan wonders if Aziz possesses incredible hidden combat instincts or an extraordinary noble bloodline.
He silently ponders why a young mage of such immense potential would travel unprotected. Grateful, Aziz invites Turan to his family estate, promising a reward for a safe escort. Aziz proudly reveals that the Burke family serves as vassals to the great house Erbion. Clenching his fist, he explains his family's legendary lineage of master enchantment artisans. Aziz promises to craft a custom magic artifact perfectly suited to Turan's unique powers. The next morning, the two stand solemnly before the stone graves of the fallen companions. Aziz expresses his deep gratitude to Turan for not mocking his cheerful breakdown. Aziz explains his father taught him that mourning dead subordinates is a pathetic weakness.
He recites the harsh, noble doctrine of moving past sacrifices without looking back. Looking down at the grave, Aziz declares he would rather be weak than heartless. With a gentle smile, Turan reassures him that showing grief is a sign of true kindness.
As they walk, Aziz suggests they speak more casually since they are of similar age.
Smiling brightly, the blonde noble extends his hand to solidify their new partnership. Taken aback by the gesture, the solitary silver-haired traveler stares at the outstretched hand.
Turan firmly clasps Aziz's hand, officially accepting his very first companion on this dangerous journey. With a mysterious chest lying before them, what legendary secrets await the newly formed duo?
A mysterious chest locked tight in the forest holds the key to incredible wonders.
Aziz kneels to open the magically refrigerated box, revealing fresh rations. Staring at the frozen foods, Turan inquires about the cooling enchantment.
Aziz showcases a water-producing teapot, a shelter-summoning plate, and an alarm sphere. Grinning broadly, Aziz proudly boasts about his self-cleaning magical garments. Astounded, Turan notes that such useful magic items are extremely rare.
Turan considers the clothes a massive reward, but Aziz promises more.
Aziz resolutely vows to override his family elders to reward Turan. Aziz claims nothing compares to Turan's power, leaving the mage perplexed.
Gesturing widely, Aziz recites the endless list of spells Turan mastered.
Aziz asks if Turan spent his entire life studying magic. Aziz wonders if Turan possesses a legendary universal magic learning bloodline. Sweating slightly, Turan evades the question by downplaying his talent. Aziz backs off laughing, apologizing for prying into Turan's family secrets. Leading Tilly forward, Aziz asks Turan about his surprisingly youthful age.
Aziz is utterly dumbstruck when Turan reveals he is only 18.
Aziz reveals he is 43 and Turan accepts the age gap.
Aziz reflects on Turan's magic and mentions another young genius exists.
Aziz introduces his second cousin, another peerless prodigy of their generation. Turan asks if she can craft an item, but Aziz demurs.
Turan realizes her identity, prompting a nod of confirmation from Aziz.
Aziz names her the Princess of Arabian, a future family head. The companions and horse continue their long trek through the woods. Aziz explains that great lineages do not easily pass down leadership.
He notes that dozens of strong relatives contend for the throne.
Rivals often emerge to challenge the patriarch's chosen biological heir. Mesa was born with peerless talent that outshone all family rivals.
Aziz details how Mesa mastered combat and bloodline magic by 21.
Turan asks if the family granted Mesa some secret assistance. Aziz reveals Mesa even inherited a deceased elder's raw magic power.
Turan silently marvels at the ruthless dominance of great noble lineages. Spotting a clearing, Aziz happily announces they have finally arrived. Turan looks out at the breathtaking view opening before him.
The rustling golden grass sways gently under the bright sky's warmth.
The expansive plains of Decane stretch endlessly toward the horizon.
Aziz explains they have entered the central territory of Arabian.
The magnificent white-walled Burke family castle towers majestically in Zabruin.
Spotting her son, the anxious matriarch rushes out in relief. Overjoyed, Aziz tearfully throws his arms around his worried mother.
Staring blankly, Turan is bewildered by the 43-year-old's childish behavior.
The stern patriarch scolds his son for lacking proper noble dignity.
Aziz introduces Turan as the brave benefactor who saved his life. Aziz's mother asks about the danger, and Aziz explains the ambush. Infuriated, the matriarch rages and vows to destroy the Dark Elves. The patriarch quickly urges his furious wife to keep her calm.
Turning to Turan, the patriarch inquires about his family lineage. Turan's evasive answer immediately piques the noble patriarch's keen interest.
Turan reveals he was born to a commoner mother with no father.
Aziz gasps in utter shock at Turan's humble, unembellished background. Respecting his heroism, the matriarch promises Turan a massive reward. In a shocking turn of events, the noble matriarch flatly refuses to house their savior inside the family estate.
She defends her harsh decision, citing strict security protocols due to an extremely prestigious guest residing within their walls. Just as tension peaks, a mysterious voice echoes from the shadows, dismissively defending the heroic traveler's intentions. Every eye turns toward the doorway as the dark, imposing silhouette of their esteemed guest slowly comes into view. Stepping into the light is a pale, mesmerizing young woman whose heavy presence commands the entire room. Aziz gasps in absolute disbelief, instantly recognizing his formidable cousin standing right before him. Staring at her, Turan realizes this is none other than the legendary princess of the dominant Arabian clan.
The young mage silently notes that despite her royal status, she possesses a terrifyingly ghostly, death-like aura.
The princess reveals a dark truth, explaining she was forced to flee here after narrowly surviving a brutal assassination attempt. Horrified by the massive breach in security, Aziz quickly begins to piece together the terrifying reality of their situation. She coldly confirms his worst fears, declaring that a traitor must be lurking deep within their own family line. Dismissing the heavy atmosphere with casual indifference, the exhausted princess leaves the family to retire for the night. Swayed by the princess's influence, the matriarch reluctantly orders their finest secondary chambers prepared for Turan. Resting in the quiet castle, Turan keeps his senses sharp, fully aware of the hidden dangers in this estate. Golden morning light pours into the lavish bedroom as the solitary mage finally awakens to a peaceful morning. An intricately enchanted magical lamp on the wall immediately catches his keen academic interest. Stepping out to explore, the silver-haired traveler wanders through the silent grand corridors of the estate. Suddenly, a familiar voice calls out his name, breaking the peaceful silence of the hallway. Aziz approaches with a bright smile, genuinely surprised to find his companion wandering about so early. Turan points out the enchanted lantern, only for Aziz to casually dismiss it as a simple childhood magic project.
He politely declines when the enthusiastic noble offers to gift him an entire storage room filled with them.
Without warning, a violent shockwave of golden lightning violently rattles the windows of the hallway. Startled by the sudden eruption of raw energy, Turan braces himself against the intense magical pressure. Aziz chuckles warmly, explaining that his tireless cousin is simply beginning her ruthless morning routine. They watch the display, discussing her clan's legendary absolute mastery over the elements. Feeling a sudden wave of envy, the young noble admits her devastating abilities make her look like a literal deity. Staring at the tempest, Turan's curiosity piques as he wonders about the true power of this legendary prodigy. Aziz suggests taking a closer look, but the cautious traveler hesitates to avoid looking suspicious. Shrugging off his worries, the blonde noble confidently promises to vouch for his friend's innocence. Turan quickly deduces the real motive, realizing his friend secretly hopes to witness a legendary clash of titans. With a mischievous grin, Aziz confesses to harboring a deep desire for revenge after a past training defeat. He admits his ultimate petty goal is to finally witness the proud princess suffer a humiliating frustration. Boldly walking onto the training courtyard, Aziz calls out to his cousin, interrupting her focused practice. The princess turns her cold gaze upon them, prompting the silver-haired traveler to introduce himself politely. Acknowledging his identity, she directly questions what brings the unexpected duo to her training grounds. Aziz casually suggests they join her, eagerly bringing up their childhood training sessions to break the ice. The ruthless princess instantly roasts his past failures, reminding him of how he ran away crying from her superior talent. Unable to control himself, Turan struggles to suppress a laugh at his friend's sheer embarrassment. An insulted Aziz quickly shifts the spotlight, hyping up Turan's monstrous magical talents to deflect the shame. Seizing the perfect opportunity, the blonde instigator boldly proposes a direct duel between the two magic prodigies. A sudden heavy silence descends over the courtyard as the explosive challenge hangs in the air.
The princess repeats the word with a dangerous, mocking smile that promises absolute destruction.
Turan keeps his composure, quietly analyzing her posture as the tension in the air reaches a boiling point.
Her eyes ignite with a brilliant predatory blue light as her dormant mana begins to violently awaken. Instantly sensing a shift in the gravity of the room, Turan looks up in utter shock at the sudden pressure. The peaceful sky blackens in a heartbeat as massive volatile bolts of golden lightning tear through the clouds. Standing beneath the swirling vortex, the princess unleashes a godlike display of absolute elemental dominance. Completely overwhelmed by the crushing gravity of her killer intent, the young traveler breaks into a cold sweat. Paralyzed by the sheer, terrifying scale of her magical power, he realizes he is staring death directly in the face.
With the tempest howling around them, a legendary battle of destiny is about to begin.
Faced with the devastating presence, the silver-haired mage breaks into a cold sweat under the crushing pressure.
Trembling with exertion, Turan struggles to steady his breathing as the overwhelming aura intensifies.
Standing cold and unimpeded, the dark-haired princess dismisses his capabilities before the duel even begins.
She bluntly declares that his current magical level is completely unworthy of facing her in battle. Glaring with fierce determination, the silver-haired traveler refuses to back down from the humiliating provocation.
A fleeting image of absolute serenity and luxury flashes through the tense atmosphere, highlighting the calm before the storm.
Aziz reflects on the harsh, unyielding nature of nobility, where moving past sacrifice is a necessary duty.
An ominous golden-cloaked figure agrees, emphasizing the ruthless doctrine of their elite family lineage.
Dozens of powerful contenders stand assembled in the shadows, waiting to usurp any heir who shows even a single moment of weakness.
Snapping back to the present, Aziz calls out to his cousin as he notices her intense focus.
He directly questions what sudden business has brought her to the training grounds today.
Aziz warmly notes her relentless dedication, admiring her constant commitment to mastering the magical arts.
Turan stands quietly by his side, silently observing the formidable prodigy from a distance.
With a sudden mischievous spark, the bold idea of a direct duel is thrown into the open air.
The arrogant princess reiterates her cold warning, firmly stating he is simply not on her level. A brief moment of quiet allure breaks the high-stakes tension of the courtyard. Powerful forces in the shadows align as the anticipation for a legendary clash reaches its absolute peak.
She condescendingly assumes that a direct duel would be far too difficult for the young traveler to handle. Turan's eyes narrow in sharp irritation as his pride is pushed to its absolute limit.
Aziz quickly steps in to diffuse her scorn, praising Turan's peerless, monstrous talent for learning new spells.
He boastfully hypes Turan's unmatched genius, challenging Mesa's own legendary status in comparison.
Intrigued by the high praise, the pale princess decides to test the silver-haired traveler's true capabilities.
She proposes a high-speed casting challenge to see who can master and perform an unfamiliar spell first. Turan stands tall and composure-filled, ready to accept the dangerous academic challenge. Aziz enthusiastically supports the trial, eager to witness an unprecedented battle of magical intellects.
To ensure absolute fairness, the dark-haired princess graciously agrees to lock away her devastating innate bloodline magic. Stepping forward resolutely, the princess confidently claims the first move in this magical demonstration. Both Turan and Aziz watch closely, wondering what kind of mystical art she is about to unleash. A tiny glowing green sprout suddenly tears through the solid stone floor.
In a flash, massive golden yellow vines violently erupt from the ground, shattering the courtyard's pavement.
Before he can even react, the wild vines snake upward and tightly bind the startled blonde noble.
Tossed high into the air, Aziz screams in terror as the princess casually demonstrates her absolute command over nature.
As the dizzy noble hangs helplessly upside down, she challenges the silver-haired mage to replicate her complex plant manipulation. Turan looks up thoughtfully, analyzing the intricate flow of mana behind a remarkable elemental display. Kneeling down calmly, the silver-haired traveler prepares to attempt the highly complex spell. He mentally deconstructs the fundamental principles of creation magic, realizing the elemental truths behind her spellcasting technique. Placing his hand firmly on the soil, Turan speaks a single commanding word to force the hidden seeds to sprout. A brilliant, explosive surge of power echoes across the training grounds as he initiates the rapid growth. Brilliant blue, glowing vines violently burst from the cracked stone floor, matching the princess's spell perfectly.
The pale princess stares in absolute speechless shock at his instantaneous mastery of her magic.
Hanging upside down, Aziz gasps in utter bewilderment at the silver-haired traveler's unbelievable genius. Impressed, Mesa acknowledges his independent discovery of the magic's true nature, questioning if he has cast it before. Dropping her dizzy cousin unceremoniously to the floor, she begrudgingly admits that Aziz's high praise was actually correct. With her interest fully piqued, the princess demands that Turan propose the next challenge to test her limits. Turan hesitates in deep thought, knowing that using his own lethal bloodline magic would be far too dangerous. Suddenly, a clever alternative flashes in his mind as he spots something in the nearby bushes. Reaching out his hand toward the dense foliage, the silver-haired mage casts a subtle, guiding spell.
The leafy green bushes rustle violently as a hidden force is suddenly awakened within. To everyone's surprise, a giant snarling rat leaps out of the foliage at his command. The legendary princess stares at him with a hilariously deadpan expression, completely underwhelmed by his lackluster choice of animal control. Whispering low, Turan kneels with the rat, revealing his next shocking move. Turan's eye glows with a brilliant ancient power. Swirling blue energy envelopes the squealing rat in Turan's grip. The rat's body rapidly mummifies under the terrifying magical influence. Mesa stares in absolute disbelief as the bizarre magic unfolds. Presenting the shriveled rat, Turan confidently declares his work is finished. Mesa accepts the challenge, ready to replicate his bizarre spell. With a slight finger twitch, Mesa begins her counterattack. On the stone pavement, the mummified rat suddenly begins to twitch. The reanimated rodent surges forward with terrifying supernatural speed. Golden magical flames erupt as Mesa commands the undead beast. The reanimated creature screeches wildly as golden energy blazes around it. Mesa struggles internally, realizing Turan's bizarre magic defies ordinary laws. Aziz calls the magic disgusting, but Turan casually shrugs it off. Turan silently wonders if even the prestigious Arabian family is ignorant. Aziz playfully suggests that Mesa concede victory to the silver-haired traveler. Infuriated, Mesa commands Aziz to shut up as she pushes her limits. Narration explains the immense complex causality factors required to channel spells. The rules of magic dictate that understanding cause and matching mana are crucial. Mesa strains to gather more power as the courtyard glows brightly. To compensate for her lack of understanding, Mesa brute forces the spell with massive mana. Driven by stubborn pride, Mesa desperately commands the rat to rot. The agonizing creature shrieks as golden magical flames consume its body. With a sudden hiss, the rodent finally shrivels into dust. Aziz is amazed that the spell worked, but Turan remains highly concerned. Straining heavily, Mesa, triumphantly holding her prize, gasps that she succeeded. Exhausted from the massive mana drain, Mesa's eyes slide shut. Mesa collapses heavily onto the hard pavement as Aziz screams her name. Aziz panics, cradling Mesa as Turan rushes over to assess her. Turan analyzes her condition, noting that simple mana depletion shouldn't cause this. Turan muses that she should only suffer from standard physical exhaustion. A sudden, shocking realization flashes in Turan's sharp silver eyes. Examining her limp hand, Turan finally pieces together the dark truth. Turan urgently asks if there is a healing mage nearby. Finding no healer, Turan scoops her up and orders water and salt. Turan realizes Mesa's body was already too weak to stand before casting. The grand estate stands peaceful under the clear sunny afternoon sky. With a soft drawn, Mesa slowly starts to regain consciousness. A worried voice desperately calls out to check on her condition. The anxious older auntie gasps in relief upon seeing her awaken. Auntie explains that a servant reported her collapse during magical treeing. The princess sits in heavy, tense silence as memories return. Auntie questions if the silver-haired guest did something to harm her. Mesa fiercely defends Turan, demanding everyone leave due to her headache. Leaving some soup bedside, Auntie urges her to prioritize her health. Auntie lets out a weary, sympathetic sigh before departing the room. Quietly thanking her aunt, Mice is left alone in the room. A deep, troubled expression clouds Mesa's face in the silence. She sits quietly, staring intently at the warm bowl of soup. Slowly, Mesa reaches out her hand to take the bowl. Reaching for the warm bowl of soup, Mesa prepares to take a life-restoring sip. She takes a single sip, completely unaware of the traumatic shock awaiting her senses. A terrifying realization suddenly flashes in her wide, trembling blue eyes. Whispering voices of her bleeding skeletal siblings echo through her mind, begging her for salvation. The horrific nightmare makes her violently sick as her body rejects the soup. The delicate bowl crashes to the floor, shattering into burning fragments in an instant. Her pale hand grips the bedsheets with absolute desperation as she trembles. Overwhelmed by unbearable trauma, the dark-haired princess clutches her head in deep agony. Meanwhile, deep below the grand estate, ancient stone structures glow with a mysterious warm light. The scene shifts to the Beck family basement where a legendary goddess temple stands. Slowly drawing his weapon, the scarred guardian boasts about the chamber's impenetrable strength. The formidable warrior Harem Berg warns the silver-haired traveler that escaping is completely impossible. Turan calmly agrees, secretly amused since he has no intention of breaking out. The scarred guard intensely insists on the room's durability, demanding the traveler acknowledge it. With an intensely serious gaze, the warrior reiterates that the chamber is extremely solid. Sweating slightly, the silver-haired traveler silently wonders if this giant man is simply bragging. A sudden sharp movement catches the silver-haired mage completely off guard. With a clean metallic ring, the giant guard fully unsheaths his heavy blade. Adopting a powerful stance, the warrior prepares to unleash a devastating sword technique. When directly questioned about his sudden actions, the guardian simply replies that he is training. In a flash of blinding speed, he unleashes a powerful wind-slicing strike. The sheer force of his quick attack leaves a sharp pressure wave lingering. Completing his motion, the skilled warrior recovers his stance with absolute ease. Turan is deeply impressed, analyzing the flawless physical efficiency and lack of wasted movement.
Sensing the silver-haired traveler's intense focus, the warrior suddenly turns his sharp gaze back.
Turan quickly apologizes for interrupting, but the guardian calmly tells him it is fine.
Leaning in with sudden intensity, the scarred warrior demands to know what Turan saw. Looking up at the massive guard, Turan honestly admits that he found the demonstration incredible. Hearing the silver-haired traveler's genuine praise, the scarred warrior looks highly satisfied. Harrenberg explains that weak nobles look down on martial combat simply to rely on magic. Turan counters that focusing on magic is simply more efficient for non-combat lineages. Recalling past dangerous encounters, Turan acknowledges that certain trials force you to fight. In a sudden, swift motion, the guard flips his heavy sword around. Offering the weapon hill first, the formidable warrior commands the silver-haired traveler to hold it. Turan questions if arming a locked-up suspect is wise, but the guard easily dismisses it. Confidently, Harrenberg claims that the traveler's weak physical body poses absolutely no threat. Accepting the blade, Turan wonders what he could possibly achieve with his weak body. Narrowing his eyes, the master instructor watches the silver-haired traveler's initial posture closely. Suddenly, an explosive surge of brilliant blue energy violently erupts around Turan. Channeling immense mana into his legs, the traveler anchors himself firmly to the floor. The scarred guard's eye widens in absolute shock at the massive surge of power. Breaking into a sudden roar, the master commands him to stop immediately. Harrenberg strictly forbids the use of mana, and Turan reluctantly agrees to comply. The instructor physically adjusts the traveler's posture, warning him of severe self-injury if he fails. Sweating under the intense pressure, Turan determines to push past his physical limits. Harrenberg commands him to perform 10 agonizing repetitions while maintaining steady breathing. Recognizing the traveler's unique potential, the scarred guardian smiles warmly at his progress. The master lectures that relying solely on magic ignores the true potential of a trained body. Panting heavily from pure physical exhaustion, Turan respects the master's harsh but true advice. Suddenly, a faint creaking sound from the shadows catches the silver-haired traveler's attention. Tension reaches a boiling point as a mysterious robed figure suddenly breaches the training chamber. Aziz's mother breaks the silence, speaking of an unforgivable offense committed against their benefactor. Bowing deeply, the robed matriarch lays bare her sincere apologies to the silver-haired guest. Turan quickly steps in to defuse the situation, humbly downplaying the previous chaotic struggle. The mother gently requests his time, revealing that the young princess desperately wishes to apologize. Reluctantly facing the silver-haired traveler, the dark-haired princess offers her stiff, awkward apologies. Turan reassures her with gentle warmth, emphasizing that her survival is all that truly matters. Suddenly, her curiosity flares as she demands answers about his bizarre, terrifying magic. Turan explains the core mechanical principles, but the clever princess realizes there is a price to pay. Brushing off her subtle trap, Turan casually smiles, showing absolutely no concern over winning or losing. Infuriated by his calm demeanor, Maisa fiercely demands a fair resolution to preserve her dignity. Striking a bold, high-stakes compromise, she offers her family's coveted secret magic in exchange. Within the luxurious quiet of her chambers, the magical rivals finalize their secret pact. Mesa holds up the shriveled rodent, testing her understanding of his microscopic biological decay magic. Frustrated by the stark simplicity of his methods, she bitterly admits to her inefficient brute force failure. While Turan tries to graciously offer a draw, she pridefully rejects his pity. Desperate to save face, she pleads with him to let their companion believe it was a tie. Searching her elegant chambers, she prepares to deliver her end of the trade. Revealing a simple wooden comb, she prepares to demonstrate her family's most mysterious physical phenomenon. Turan watches with quiet fascination as she runs the wooden tool through her dark locks. She triumphantly exhibits the strange attraction, explaining how objects draw close when rubbed together. With a completely deadpan expression, the silver-haired traveler immediately names the force as static electricity. The princess stands frozen in absolute shock, horrified that her family's secret magic is common knowledge. Deeply humiliated, yet determined, she vows to find a secret that will genuinely puzzle him. Hiding her embarrassment behind a defensive mask, she commands him to join her for regular training. Smiling warmly, Turan easily agrees to her request, setting their first training rendezvous. Later that day, an extraordinarily lavish, mouth-watering feast is prepared in the main hall. Under a glittering chandelier, the matriarch welcomes their savior with unmatched royal hospitality. Aziz is utterly dumbfounded by the sheer extravagance, calling out the unprecedented luxury. Observing the massive spread, Turan breaks into a cold sweat, sensing a hidden trap. Setting her sights on the silver-haired mage, the matriarch shifts the discussion to the promised reward. She directly questions him about the magical artifact promised in exchange for her son's life. Turan carefully requests a powerful defensive tool, emphasizing the extreme difficulty of personal protection. Her talented blonde son, Mello, confidently volunteers to craft the requested protective accessory. Mello raises his hand high, assuring the table that his schedule is perfectly clear for the task.
The matriarch intensely questions his design, demanding an item suitable for constant, everyday wear. Mello confidently proposes embedding powerful bloodline barrier magic into subtle, portable jewelry within a single month.
Beaming with pride, the matriarch passionately boasts of her son's immense magical talent. The sheer scale of this impending magical masterpiece begins to dawn on the silver-haired traveler. Turan expresses his deep concern, questioning if such an legendary reward is far too excessive. The matriarch immediately insists on his worth, officially inviting him to reside as their honored house guest. As dawn breaks over the grand estate, the silver-haired traveler finds himself in a very interesting position. Strolling through the bustling city market, Aziz begins to drop hints about his family's true motives. Shocked by the revelation, Turan quickly pieces together the matriarch's clever recruitment scheme. Aziz playfully details how his mother uses lavish gifts and beautiful maidens to ensnare talented wizards. Patting his shoulder, Aziz reassures him that the matriarch would never force a marriage. Turan casually mentions his upcoming evening training session with the dark-haired princess. Seizing the opportunity, Aziz wraps an arm around him, insisting they patrol the lively city together. Turan looks on with weary amusement as his plans for quiet training are instantly shattered. Dragging his companion along the hard cobblestones, Aziz hilariously reminds him to enjoy life's short pleasures. Under the dim lights of a high-stakes establishment, the roulette wheel spins, initiating a dangerous game of chance. Stepping away from the tables, the companions silently agree that gambling is a fool's errand. Aziz enthusiastically boasts about their next destination, eagerly dragging his calm companion along. The duo navigates the crowded streets of the city, taking in the vibrant sights and sounds. Suddenly, a strange sensation washes over Turan, forcing him to pause mid-step. Walking up to a public notice board, he spots a highly familiar face on a wanted poster. The silver-haired traveler is utterly frozen, his mind racing as he processes the shocking visual. He instantly recognizes the legendary knight, Kiorn, immortalized on the weathered paper. He recalls a cheerful storyteller who first introduced him to the knight's incredible legends. The memories of legendary sword fights come rushing back in a flurry of sparks. The stage play depicts the historic moment of the year 2195 when Arabian's warriors entered the Demon Desert. The play showcases Kiorn's miraculous victory, defeating the ultimate enemy through divine intervention. Watching from the crowd, Aziz cheers loudly while Turan applauds with a thoughtful expression. Aziz eagerly asks for his companion's opinion, and Turan offers his polite approval of the show. He reflects deeply on Kiorn's legendary humility, marveling at how a hero could remain so grounded. Looking out over the golden horizon, he promises himself to one day ask the hero for the truth. A brand new morning arrives, casting bright rays of light across the quiet chamber. Groggily opening his eyes, the silver-haired traveler struggles to wake from his deep slumber. Suddenly, he finds the intimidating guardian looming over him with an intensely serious stare. Haram inquires about his recovery, while a confused Turan questions his sudden morning visit. Haram notes Turan's exceptional physical potential, leaving the traveler completely baffled. The Master Guardian insists on immediate physical training to begin forging his weak body. Realizing the immense value of the lesson, Turan eagerly accepts the harsh training invitation. Just then, Aziz bursts into the room with exciting news of another local show. Aziz instantly freezes in sheer terror upon spotting the imposing guardian standing right there. Haram demands Aziz join their workout, but the terrified blonde boy frantically tries to escape. Screaming in panic, Aziz bolts down the corridor to evade the brutal training session. Watching his friend flee, the silver-haired traveler wonders why Aziz is acting so incredibly terrified. Moments later, the grim reality of the impending torment finally dawns on Turan. The brutal training commences instantly, the master's booming voice echoing through the gym. Under a massive weight, Turan struggles to push his physical limits, while Haram demands absolute mental dominance. Trembling violently under the intense physical strain, he squeaks out one final agonizing repetition. Pleased with the effort, the strict instructor finally commands him to halt. Collapsing onto the cold floor, Turan gasps desperately for air, utterly drained of all energy. Haram casually asks if it was difficult, receiving a weak, breathless confirmation from the exhausted traveler. Haram explains that wizards are incredibly fortunate because their training yields permanent results, sparking Turan's deep curiosity. The master explains that normal fighters must train continuously to prevent their muscles from wasting away. He reveals that mana permanently preserves a wizard's physical conditioning once they achieve a breakthrough. Grinning with sudden intensity, Haram decides that their brief resting period is officially over. Turan recoils in sheer horror, desperately trying to protest the relentless training schedule. Ignoring the boy's pleas, Haram declares that it is time to master weaponry and direct combat. A blood-curdling scream echoes through the massive gym, signaling the start of a nightmare. Gasping for breath, Turan pushes through the agonizing limits of physical endurance. Clashing blades under localized heavy gravity, Turan fights to stay upright against Haram's devastating strikes. As dusk falls, Turan joins the dark-haired princess Mesa to practice refining his magical control.
Under the setting sun, constant crackles of magic ring out from the grand courtyard.
A sudden, powerful bolt of lightning misses the training target, striking the wall behind it. Disappointed by his poor aim, the silver-haired mage stares at his sparking fingers in frustration.
Mesa seizes the opportunity to tease him, noting his surprising struggle with the simple technique. With a knowing grin, Turan explains that his unique origins are the true cause of his difficulty. What secrets will his foreign magic reveal next?
Amid the quiet courtyards of the estate, a dramatic revelation about lightning magic unfolds as the princess and the traveler debate its hidden complexity.
Suddenly, approaching footsteps disrupt their intense conversation, putting the dark-haired princess on high alert. A frantic cloaked messenger bursts into the courtyard, calling out to them in desperate haste. The messenger freezes in absolute shock as his eyes lock onto the silver-haired traveler.
Stepping in to defend her companion, the dark-haired princess coldly demands to know what urgent business warrants this intrusion.
The messenger delivers a summons from the patriarch, earning a sharp, threatening warning from the annoyed princess.
The messenger shares devastating news of a brutal dark elf rampage that has already wiped out 3 southern cities. In the dark depths of the south, a massive, glowing-eyed army of dark elves prepares for war. The silver-haired traveler realizes that a terrifying enemy from ancient legends has finally returned. A heroic new saga begins as the brave wizard prepares to face his ultimate trials.
Powerful magical forces gather, setting the stage for a spectacular clash of elemental powers.
The ominous threat of the dark elf invasion looms closer, casting a shadow over the continent.
With unwavering determination, the silver-haired mage prepares to stand against the approaching darkness.
Acknowledging the extreme emergency, the dark-haired princess orders the bowing messenger to report her imminent arrival to the patriarch. Sighing deeply, the dark-headed princess prepares to depart for the urgent war council.
Before leaving, she insists on collecting her end of their deal for his decay magic. Clapping her hands together, she prepares to demonstrate her family's most closely guarded secret.
She tests his knowledge by asking if he understands the electrical currents flowing within living organisms.
The silver-haired traveler looks completely bewildered by her unexpected biological inquiry. She proudly boasts that this advanced biological insight is the legendary secret of the Arabian family.
She generously offers to clear his training debt in exchange for teaching him this elite technique.
Recognizing the immense tactical value of her proposal, he calmly accepts her terms. She explains how sensory perceptions translate into microscopic electrical impulses traveling directly to the brain.
Closing his eyes, the brilliant silver-haired traveler immediately begins to focus on his internal pathways.
He successfully isolates the spark of a single biological electrical signal within his mind. He maps out the complex, crackling network of electricity coursing through his physical form. He realizes that accelerating these biological signals will exponentially increase his physical reaction speed.
A spectacular blast of blue lightning surges through his legs as the magic activates.
His eyes flare with intense blue energy as his physical limits are instantly shattered. The scene transitions quietly as a delicate butterfly flutters through the silent training courtyard. Stunned by his raw talent, the princess struggles to comprehend how quickly he grasped the concept. She teasingly asks how it feels to finally unlock the absolute peak of lightning acceleration magic. The silver-haired traveler lets out a breathless laugh, deeply unnerved by the sudden, intense side effects of the technique. Sudden, agonizing static sparks crackle around his head, indicating a severe magical overload. Doubling over in intense pain, he groans as a devastating headache strikes his mind. The dark-haired princess looks on with a smug grin, amused by his successful but painful attempt. She explains that his agonizing headache is the direct result of recklessly overcharging his mana.
While she reassures him of his future potential, the silver-haired traveler marvels at the immense value of the secret technique.
With a sudden explosive pop of air, she prepares to take her leave.
She insists that sharing her family's magic is merely a calculated investment in his undeniable talent.
Soaring gracefully into the air, she playfully vows to collect an even greater reward from him in the future.
She streaks across the sky like a comet, leaving the stunned traveler behind in her wake. Standing in the quiet courtyard, the silver-haired traveler looks up in silent awe of her power.
High above, a majestic hawk lets out a piercing cry, signaling a shift in the wind. The hawk glides effortlessly through the clouds, turning the focus toward a brand new destination. The scene shifts to the bustling Morgan City, where a grand, heavily armored army gathers in the streets.
The enthusiastic citizens roar with pride, chanting powerful cheers of glory for the Arabian house. Standing in the crowd, the silver-haired traveler and his blonde companion Aziz marvel at the parade's festive victory-like atmosphere. Suddenly, Aziz spots a highly familiar face marching in the ranks and gasps in surprise.
Waving his arms wildly, Aziz excitedly calls out to a dark-haired knight named Mason riding past them. As a majestic parade sweeps through Morgan City, a stern father commands his blonde-haired son, Ashes, to maintain his noble composure.
A booming announcement suddenly heralds the highly anticipated entrance of the formidable house patriarch.
Amidst the quiet crowd, the silver-haired traveler and his companion look on with intense focus.
Stoic guards stand at attention as heavy, resonant footsteps echo down the grand entranceway. Turan's eyes widen in quiet surprise as he catches sight of the legendary figure.
The current head of the Robian house finally makes his grand imposing appearance. Armored boots stride forward, each deliberate step resonating with immense power. The legendary patriarch, Badal Arabian, commands the room with his battle-worn gaze and glowing blue eyes. Noticing his pale, worn appearance, Turan and Ashish quietly whisper about the patriarch's seemingly failing health. Turan recalls the dark history of Badal's past injuries, wondering if old age is finally taking its toll. With sudden authority, Badal raises his armored arm high toward the sky to channel his power. The onlookers watch in breathless awe as a powerful magical aura begins to gather. A citizen gasps in sheer amazement as the atmosphere crackles with raw elemental energy. The crowd erupts into roaring chants, praising the House of Arabian and invoking the Lord of Thunder. Suddenly, massive streaks of brilliant golden lightning tear through the dark sky, showcasing the terrifying power of Arabian. Turan marvels at how easily Badal's overwhelming mana dominates the entire surrounding region. Piercing golden lightning bolts strike the estate repeatedly, lighting up the dark horizon. The glowing city stands illuminated, a breathtaking testament to the absolute pinnacle of human magic. Staring at the spectacular display, Turan silently vows to one day reach that very same godlike level of power. Transitioning to a quieter moment, Ashish holds out a beautiful, glowing braided leather bracelet as a gift. Ashish explains that the magical artifact enhances physical stamina, unlocking even greater power when infused with mana. With a helpful gesture, the blonde boy warns Turan that the device consumes a massive amount of mana if maintained too long. Turan is deeply impressed by the incredible craftsmanship of the rare and powerful magical treasure. A mature noblewoman dressed in a traditional hood steps forward to address the silver-haired traveler. Recognizing his undeniable talent, she directly invites Turan to formally join their noble house. Turan politely declines the generous invitation, leaving the noblewoman to accept his decision with quiet grace. She reveals that Ashish already told her about Turan's busy travel plans, understanding his reluctance to settle down. Looking through the window, Turan promises to always cherish their friendship, a vow that brings comfort to the noblewoman. With his farewells finished, Turan steps out into the quiet corridor to continue his journey. Suddenly, Turan halts in surprise as he notices someone waiting for him in the hallway. The strict master trainer stands alongside Ashish, waiting patiently to see the traveler off. Turan offers a parting gift, handing over a beautifully crafted sheathed magical dagger. Turan explains that the durable blade is exceptionally sharp and serves as a highly reliable tool. Turan holds the dagger close and expresses his deep, heartfelt gratitude to his strict instructor. The battle-hardened master looks on in stunned silence, deeply touched by the thoughtful gesture. A proud, subtle smile finally graces the strict master's face. Turan watches in quiet respect as his legendary instructor walks away down the corridor. Suddenly, Ashish playfully throws a large, dark cloak over Turan's shoulders. Surprised by the heavy cloak, Turan questions the gesture while Ashish smiles warmly. Ashish proudly boasts that the high-quality fabric is resistant to dirt and self-mends minor damage. With a bright, cheerful grin, the blonde boy hands over a fresh set of traveling clothes. Touched by his companion's incredible kindness, Turan looks at him with warm gratitude. Ashish expresses how much their shared adventures and Turan's inspiring lifestyle have impacted him. Asking about the next leg of their journey, Ashish inquires where Turan plans to travel next. Ashish playfully warns him to avoid traveling by ship to Carmane due to the violently rough waves. Turan silently smiles, knowing he must brave those very waves to reach his true destination in Zahar. Ashish teasingly bids him a safe journey, demanding a future repayment for the special traveling cloak. Shifting scenes, the majestic noble estate stands grand and quiet under the warm morning sun. Setting off on a brand new adventure, Turan walks alongside fellow travelers past vast golden wheat fields. Traveling alone once more, the resilient silver-haired mage smiles, ready to face his next ultimate trial. Just as the dust begins to settle, a mysterious shadow takes his first decisive step forward. A running companion suggests fleeing as multiple unknown pursuers suddenly give chase. The blonde-haired boy looks on in sudden wide-eyed bewilderment at the chase. A battle-hardened man looks back in absolute shock at their extreme speed. Multiple figures sprint down a dirt road, escaping from their pursuers at high speed. The scenery flashes by in a blur of intense rapid movement as they run. A dark boot skids to a sudden halt, kicking up clouds of dust. The silver-haired traveler catches his breath, looking determinedly behind him at his journey. Walking alone once more, Turan journeys toward a majestic mountain towering in the distance. Turan halts and sniffs the air, detecting a strange scent nearby. Halting in his tracks, Turan is intrigued by a sudden troubling realization. Turan initially mistakes a scent for a campfire before realizing it is the sickening smell of burning flesh. Turan's eyes widen in sheer horror as he looks upon the horizon. He gazes in absolute shock at a completely devastated ruined village ahead. A horrific close-up reveals maggots crawling over charred, decaying remains in the ruins. Dismayed, Turan discovers charred corpses tied to wooden posts among the destroyed structures. Turan questions if a group of brutal bandits are responsible for this horrific attack. A chilling realization prompts the thought that the dark elf should not have advanced this far. Suddenly, an unexpected sound nearby catches the silver-haired traveler's attention. He scans a heavily damaged, ruined wooden building to search for any potential survivors. Confirming his suspicions, Turan locates a hidden cellar entry within the ruins. Bandaged hands firmly grip the wooden handle of a hidden trapdoor. With a heavy heave, Turan lifts the wooden cover blocking the hidden cellar. Turan's eye widens in surprise at the sight he uncovers below. A terrified dark-haired girl sits huddled in the dark cellar room. Spotting him, the frightened dark-haired girl screams in sheer terror. Raising his hands, Turan reassures the frightened girl that he is not an enemy and came to help. Tearfully, the dark-haired girl asks if he is truly there to rescue her.
Turan gently confirms his intentions and asks her to explain what happened to her village.
The sobbing girl reveals that a ruthless mage slaughtered everyone, leaving Turan utterly shocked. Overcome by immense fear and physical exhaustion, the dark-haired girl suddenly collapses. Holding her gently, Turan confirms she is merely exhausted from her terrifying ordeal in the cellar. Carrying her out, Turan resolves to find a safe haven for the helpless child. A hand draws a bowstring charged with crackling, glowing blue energy. Turan gasps in surprise as a hostile voice suddenly alerts him from the shadows. A group of armed warriors surrounds Turan as they draw their weapons in the ruins. The blonde archer points her glowing blue bow, ordering him to drop to his knees immediately. She fiercely accuses Turan of being a heartless murderer trying to kidnap a helpless child. A grand announcement highlights the epic scale of the adventure, inviting readers to follow the journey. The ambushers call out to confirm they have successfully located their target. A squad of mages and archers aims their deadly magical weapons directly at Turan. The furious blonde archer demands to know if the slaughter was not enough for him. A young companion warns Turan not to move, threatening him with a raging fire spell. Holding the child, Turan urgently begs them to listen, pleading that this is all a misunderstanding. Suddenly, the nervous young companion loses control and unleashes a massive fire spell. A devastating fiery explosion erupts directly where Turan and the child are standing. The blonde archer angrily scolds her companion for recklessly attacking while a child was present. Her eyes widen in pure disbelief as the thick smoke begins to clear. A shadow looms within the clearing smoke, revealing an unexpected silhouette still standing. Standing completely unscathed, Turan deploys a glowing barrier to shield the unconscious child, ready to face his attackers. Turan is forced to activate his glowing stamina-enhancing artifact much sooner than expected. The ambushers watch in utter shock as Turan blocks their deadly magic completely unscathed. The attackers are left bewildered, wondering if Turan wields a rare bloodline defense. Sweating in sheer disbelief, the blonde archer Beeson realizes they are completely outclassed. Turan firmly warns them that he will not hesitate to retaliate if they attack again. Intimidated by his overwhelming presence, Beeson slowly lowers her glowing magical bow. The rescued dark-haired child rests safely in Turan's arms during the tense standoff. The warriors realize a ruthless killer would never risk their life to protect a survivor. Recognizing his innocence, Beeson introduces herself and asks for the silver-haired traveler's name. Though Beeson backs down, her companions remain highly skeptical of the mysterious stranger. Turan calmly suggests they ask the child for the truth once she awakens. Shockwaves through Beeson as she realizes a witness to the massacre actually survived. She eagerly questions if the young child truly saw the legendary elusive culprit. Turan admits he has no idea who this infamous destructive figure is. Beeson explains that a ruthless mad mage has been terrorizing local villages for months. She describes how the depraved monster mercilessly ties up and burns innocent victims alive. This horrifying, mysterious serial killer is known to all only as the arsonist. The awakened girl describes a scary suspect wearing a red cloak with a thick beard. The revelation aligns perfectly with their clues, leaving the warriors in deep contemplation. Heavy guilt weighs on Beeson as she turns to face the innocent traveler. Bowing deeply, Bison and her companion offer their sincere apologies for their recklessness. Turan reflects on how even noble leaders can let desperation cloud their logical judgment. He quietly respects Mitten, acknowledging his earnest leadership and sense of duty. Gracing them with a gentle smile, Turan forgives them because they prioritize the child's safety. Turan inquires if their primary objective in the region is hunting down the arsonist. Bison confirms they rush to the fresh fire site, hoping to corner the criminal. She confidently declares they will locate him soon thanks to their natural tracker. Turan's interest is piqued, questioning if she belongs to the renowned Zahar family. Bison clarifies that she belongs to the Carmain family alongside her loyal allies. She reveals their tracker possesses diluted blood from the legendary Zahar noble lineage. Although the bloodline manifested weakly, she possesses a natural gift for magic tracking. Turning back to Turan, Beeson presents him with a sudden and crucial request. She directly asks the powerful silver-haired mage to help them hunt down the arsonist. Turan stays quiet, thoughtfully considering this dangerous yet intriguing proposal. To entice him, Beeson offers to yield the entire capture reward to Turan. She even promises to forfeit her own portion of precious mana for his aid. Turan asks about the target's strength, learning he is a formidable noble-level mage. Hearing that the arsonist easily slaughtered several guard knights raises the high-stakes danger. Turan realizes a noble-level opponent is exactly the high-stakes battle he needs to grow. To their absolute delight, Turan confidently agrees to join their dangerous hunt. Shifting scenes, the newly formed party arrives at a peaceful nearby village. Turan generously provides a sack of gold to secure the child's long-term upbringing.
Bidding farewell, Turan promises the little girl that he will return to check on her.
The village elder is left absolutely stunned by the traveler's incredible noble generosity.
With the child safe, the group heads back toward the desolate shore ruins.
Asha closes her eyes, focusing her senses to detect any lingering magical traces.
Her eyes suddenly snap open, glowing with a brilliant and intense blue magic.
Asha points the way forward, confidently leading the group into the dark woods.
Ready for a fight, Bizin coordinates their movement as they rush along the path.
The party charges forward into the quiet forest, heading straight toward a deadly confrontation.
A shattered tree trunk reveals the devastating path left behind.
Asha focuses her senses, sniffing the air to trace their target.
Turan inquires about Asha's tracking method as she searches the ground. Asha explains she tracked footprints first, then followed the scent of ash residue.
Turan silently praises her professional skills, but wonders about past difficulties.
Asha's eye suddenly widens as she announces she found the trail.
Bissen urgently shouts for Asha to slow down as she sprints ahead.
The dense forest gives way to a towering, jagged stone mountain. The group cautiously approaches a dark, looming cave in the cliffs. Bison orders the rest of the group to stay back while calling Turan to the front. A glowing orb of light is summoned to illuminate the darkness. Bissen leads the group deeper into the dark, cavernous passage. Feeling a presence, Bissen quietly asks if there is someone inside.
With glowing blue eyes, Asha nervously confirms there is one person ahead.
The group steps into a wider chamber illuminated by flickering firelight. Bison steals her resolve, ready for the impending confrontation.
Torches burn brightly along the stone walls, casting long shadows.
A mysterious hooded figure stands silently before them in the cavern.
The creepy, gaunt-faced man asks what brings them to this isolated place.
Turan questions his identity, and Asha confirms it by detecting his scent. Bison aims her glowing bow, demanding if he is the killer who burned the villagers. The man feigns ignorance, claiming he does not understand her accusation.
The suspect thrusts his hand forward to launch a sudden attack.
A massive fiery explosion erupts violently within the stone cavern. One of the companions screams in agony as a sudden blast of fire engulfs them. Turan raises his bandaged hand, summoning a defensive magical barrier.
Turan's glowing shield completely protects Bison and himself from the flames.
The arsonist stares in sheer shock as his deadly attack is easily blocked. Seizing the opening, Bison fires a powerful glowing magical arrow. The magic arrow strikes the arsonist directly in the chest.
The wounded villain falls to his knees, struggling to stand. He glares with a bloodshot, furious eye, refusing to submit.
Desperate, he slams his palm onto the stone ground to cast a spell.
Massive stone hands erupt from the earth to crush his opponents.
Turan is highly surprised, questioning why the suspect is manipulating earth instead of fire. Bizin screams in terror as the giant stone hands slam shut around her. Turan leaps away, agilely avoiding the devastating, crushing stone trap. Landing gracefully, Turan immediately charges forward to counterattack the killer.
The arsonist desperately reaches out, attempting to cast another spell.
The arsonist gasps in shock as a swift slash severs his arm.
The arsonist screams in agonizing pain as blood sprays from his wound.
Turan gathers crackling bright blue lightning in his bandaged palm.
Turan unleashes a devastating electrical blast, shockwaves jolting the criminal.
The arsonist screams in agony as high-voltage lightning surges through him. Bissen gasps as she remains trapped under the cracked, massive stone hands. Turan stands triumphantly over the defeated, smoking body of their target.
Bison asks if you defeated the killer, and Turan tells her to check on the others. Turan discovers mysterious dark seeds inside his bandaged paw.
The defeated killer looks up weakly, surrounded by scattered dark seeds. Glowing blue magical ropes instantly bind the defeated criminal. Turan completely binds his captive's movements and seals his senses to finish the intense battle. He taps the unconscious criminal with his blade to rouse him for interrogation.
The blindfolded rogue noble breaks into an unsettling, defiant grin despite being captured.
Turan holds his sharp blade directly to the villain's throat, warning him against releasing any mana. The rest of the hunting party watches as they directly confront the captured killer to confirm his identity. The helpless prisoner remains dead silent under their harsh gaze. Turan delivers a swift, bloody cut to keep the struggling criminal from using his hidden powers.
He demands to know why a noble would resort to such depraved, fiery massacres.
The bleeding madman frantically screams that a divine entity ordered him to sacrifice the local souls. The entire party is left completely frozen in absolute shock by his deranged, fanatic ramblings. The arsonist reveals that he was granted the divine secret to stealing and acquiring other mages' bloodlines. He screams in absolute delusion that burning a few more victims will finally grant him his coveted fire powers.
Bison expresses utter disgust at the pure madness of attempting to steal innate bloodlines through murder.
In a subtle twist, a knowing smirk suddenly spreads across Turan's face.
He stares down at the villain with a cold, piercing look of deep understanding. The blonde warrior rationalizes that power stealing is a known concept even practiced on demonic beasts.
He eagerly confirms that powerful mages do this regularly to enhance their magic.
The tied-up arsonist continues to obsessively mutter about seizing the power of flames, confirming his complete descent into madness.
Turan tightly grips the criminal as the grim reality of the situation settles in.
A shadowy realization washes over Turin as he realizes the dark truth hidden behind these horrific acts. A profound, unsettling realization of how this world system truly functions hits Turan to his very core. With swift, cold precision, Turan instantly slits the madman's throat to end his reign of terror.
The lifeless body of the arsonist collapses onto the cold stone floor before the silent hunting party.
The young blonde warrior looks deeply unnerved and physically sickened by the sudden, ruthless execution.
He expresses deep discomfort over executing a completely helpless, tied-up prisoner like mere livestock.
Bison sternly reprimands him, reminding him that the killer would have easily slaughtered them all without hesitation. She fiercely declares that even an agonizing execution is far too merciful for a monster who burned countless innocents alive. Turan notices a small, mysterious booklet lying on the cavern floor and quietly picks it up. He flips through the pages of the personal journal to uncover the dark secrets of the deceased killer. Inside, a detailed map marked with several ominous red locations serves as definitive evidence of his crimes. Turan's eyes suddenly widen in pure shock as he turns to the next page of the book. The journal contains highly intricate, unheard-of magic combination formulas that challenge his entire understanding of magic. Bison walks over to Turan, calling him back to the task at hand. She gestures toward the fallen mage, suggesting they harvest the massive amount of lingering mana. Swirling green magical energy erupts from the corpse as the party begins absorbing the raw, potent power. Near the pool of blood, a strange, severed gray quarter tail lies completely abandoned on the floor. The title card signals a brand new chapter in the epic journey of the Shepherd Wizard.
Back in the bustling city, a high-ranking messenger officially congratulates Bison for successfully taking down the notorious criminal.
Bison gracefully accepts the reward box, sharing the glorious victory alongside her mysterious silver-haired ally.
She reveals that her group intends to continue their journey across the continent to hunt down dangerous monsters.
She hands over a heavy sack of gold to Turan as his promise shared the hard-earned reward.
Turan tells her that his next destination is the remote, mysterious region of Abacha.
Bison quietly whispers a final warning about keeping the madman's terrifying secrets safe from the public.
The group bids a warm and friendly farewell to Turan as they part ways on their respective journeys.
Turan waves back, keeping his thoughts about the lack of definitive proof entirely to himself. The scene transitions to a massive windswept desert of golden sand dunes baking under a harsh sun. Turan treks entirely alone through the vast, unforgiving desert landscape. He stops in his tracks, noting a sudden and highly unusual rise in the desert's humidity. He quickly snaps his bandaged fingers to test his magical abilities in the strange environment.
A tiny weakened flame ignites on his finger, confirming that fire magic is severely restricted in this human mysterious desert.
Elemental forces shift in the arid wastes as water magic suddenly manifests with effortless ease.
While fire magic remains heavily suppressed, water flows through Turan's bandaged hands with incredible unnatural fluidity. This sudden shift in elemental energy can only mean one thing: the ocean is incredibly close. Traversing the final stretch of the scorching sands, the silver-haired traveler pushes forward toward his destination.
Turan looks up at the vast blue sky, wondering if he has finally reached Abacha.
Reaching the edge of a massive sand dune, a sprawling, beautiful coastal city comes into view.
Seeking a way to cross the sea, Turan enters the bustling port town to find passage. Inside a local tavern, a patron asks a group of weary sailors about their upcoming voyage.
The seasoned mariners complain bitterly about their dangerous route, dreading the hostile merfolk who relentlessly assault their ship.
They exchange grim warnings about the terrifying pirate fleets that infest the open waters ahead.
The scarred, eye-patch-wearing captain desperately laments their lack of a powerful knight to protect the crew.
Overhearing their desperate conversation, Turan approaches their table with quiet confidence. Turan interrupts the sailors, asking if their ship is indeed bound for the Emerald Desert. The captain immediately refuses him, humorously claiming he refuses to sacrifice cargo space meant for his alcohol. Undeterred, Turan quietly extends his hand to show them what he is truly capable of. Startled and annoyed by the sudden intrusion, the captain demands to know his intentions.
With a simple tap of his bandaged finger, Turan instantly freezes the captain's entire drinking mug solid. The eye-patch-wearing captain stares in absolute shock at the sheer mastery of ice magic. The entire tavern crew leaps to their feet in respect, mistaking the traveler for a legendary high knight.
The captain respectfully inquires about what would bring such a powerful warrior to their humble vessel.
Turan offers his combat services as free security in exchange for simple passage to his destination. A sailor cautions that their impoverished vessel cannot offer accommodations befitting a knight's status.
Turan reassures him that he cares nothing for luxury, only about reaching the desert. Thrilled by the prospect of having a powerful wizard protector, the captain stands up in excitement.
The captain enthusiastically accepts the offer, welcoming Turan aboard without a second thought.
With their powerful new ally secured, the vessel sets sail into the dangerous open ocean.
Meanwhile, a terrifying conflict erupts elsewhere as a distant fortress city is consumed by a violent inferno.
Relentless flames sweep through the battlements as a brutal siege tears the settlement apart. Amidst the smoke and ashes, an exhausted young soldier grips his sword, panting heavily.
A grotesque mutated monster with glowing yellow eyes screeches savagely as it corners the soldier.
Summoning his remaining strength, the brave warrior delivers a swift, bloody slash to fell the beast. Before he can recover, another white-haired beast lunges from the shadows to ambush him. The young soldier barely manages to parry the devastating blow as his blade clashes with the monster's weapon.
Fighting for his life, he sweeps his sword to push back the encroaching horde of creatures.
The monstrous swarm continues to press forward with terrifying bloodlust in their eyes. Overwhelmed and exhausted, the desperate soldier realizes he is about to be completely overrun.
Suddenly, the dark sky above crackles with a sudden surge of intense yellow lightning.
A deafening rumble echoes across the battlefield as the heavens prepare to unleash fury. Massive, devastating lightning bolts strikes down from above, vaporizing the attacking monsters in an instant.
The remaining creatures scream in agonizing pain as high-voltage electricity surges through the battlefield. The young soldier looks back in complete awe at the sudden, overwhelming display of divine power. From the stormy clouds, a powerful, black-haired woman floats down gracefully to the burning ground.
With a cold, commanding gaze, she sternly orders the soldier to fall back and rejoin his unit.
Relieved and deeply grateful, the soldier salutes before quickly retreating to safety. A muscular, orange-haired commander floats down from the sky to join her, calling her Mesa. Vice Captain Kadram Arabian of the Arabian Subjugation Force asks Mesa if she is unharmed. Kadram floatingly advises her not to push herself so hard, claiming her life is far more precious than ordinary soldiers. He notes that their subjugation efforts are going well, though they have yet to locate the enemy's hidden tunnels. Mesa coldly demands to be notified the moment the tunnels are found so she can destroy them herself. With a powerful burst of magical energy, she flies back into the sky, leaving Kadram to watch her go. The orange-haired commander smirks with absolute disdain as he scoffs in quiet frustration. Kadram Arabian grumbles about a certain reckless girl, expressing deep irritation over her insolent upbringing.
The black-haired woman, Mesa, flies gracefully down as the commander fears she will suffer the same fate as her tragic family. Shifting to the open sea, violent waves crash aggressively under a clear, bright sky.
A massive wooden vessel cuts through the turbulent blue ocean, setting off on a high-stakes journey. Standing at the ship's railing, the silver-haired wizard, Torin, gazes thoughtfully out into the endless blue horizon. Leaning against the wooden rail, Turan worries about his lack of concrete clues upon reaching the mysterious land of Zahar.
Below him on the deck, the active crew operates the vessel while Turan wonders what became of his missing father. He gazes at a simple sketch of his mother's face, wondering how long it will take to uncover her secrets.
Suddenly, a scarred, rough hand firmly pats Turan's shoulder, snapping him out of his deep contemplation. The eye-patch-wearing captain jokingly tells Turan to stop staring so intensely at the water and asks what is on his mind.
Turning to the captain with a gentle smile, the silver-haired youth simply replies that he was reflecting on the ocean's massive scale.
As the hard-working sailors hustle across the deck, the captain thoughtfully checks in to see if Turan is handling seasickness.
Slinging an arm around the wizard's shoulder, the excited captain praises him for eagerly learning seafaring skills from the boatswain. Turan warmly explains that he finds the knowledge genuinely fascinating and highly practical for his journey.
Deep inside the ship's holding deck, a crewman shouts a roaring announcement that food is finally ready. Back on the sunlit deck, the captain claps his hands enthusiastically, urging the entire crew to head down for a hearty meal.
Turan holds a modest plate containing sliced meat and a serving of salted pickled cabbage.
In the bustling dining hall, Turan sits amongst the crew as a bun-haired sailor explains the vital importance of their meals. The veteran sailor explains that the sour pickled cabbage is crucial for preventing a deadly bleeding gum disease. Chewing thoughtfully on his food, the silver-haired wizard curiously asks how the crew ever discovered such a remedy. The sailor explains that the knowledge simply spread over time, adding a dark historical note about eating raw merfolk.
Suddenly, a tense warning echoes down from the rigging, alerting the crew to an unidentified vessel ahead.
High in the crow's nest, a lookout peers through his spyglass, anxiously wondering if they are about to be ambushed by pirates. A chaotic shout confirms that the mysterious ship is flying absolutely no identifying crest or banner. Through the narrow lens of the spyglass, a ghostly white-sailed ship looms ominously in the distance. The bearded sailor grimly warns that the approaching vessel is undoubtedly a hostile pirate ship looking for blood. Below deck, a frenzy erupts as the terrified crew rushes to arm themselves with heavy axes, swords, and spiked maces. Looking through his binoculars, the captain receives an urgent status report that the faster pirate ship will inevitably catch them. Peering through the glass, the captain desperately considers fleeing toward a nearby island to escape the chase. The captain looks back at his powerful silver-haired ally, questioning if the wizard is truly ready to handle this threat. With cool confidence, Turan assures him that the battle will be easy as long as there are no elite enemy knights or nobles on board. Feeling reassured, the captain orders his crew to swing the ship around and prepare for a direct aggressive engagement. A stunning aerial view captures the two wooden ships aggressively closing the distance on the shimmering blue sea. The ruthless pirate crew mockingly offers to spare their lives if they surrender their vessel without a fight. Turan looks on with mild amusement, questioning if the pirates' idea of mercy involves throwing them overboard anyway. Moving with lightning speed, the silver-haired wizard firmly plants his foot and prepares to make a daring leap. In an incredible display of physical power, Turan launches himself high into the air directly toward the pirate ship. Crashing down onto the enemy deck, Turan effortlessly knocks a pirate off his feet, taking the entire crew completely by surprise.
The heavily scarred pirate leader gasps in pure disbelief at the single warrior who just recklessly boarded his ship.
Suddenly, a massive splash of seawater erupts from the ocean, signaling the awakening of powerful elemental magic. A panicked pirate commands his men to kill the intruder immediately as a bizarre magical energy takes shape. Massive, razor-sharp spires of blue ice violently erupt from the seawater, surrounding the pirate vessel in a deadly trap. The devastating ice spears rain down upon the deck, mercilessly impaling the screaming pirates in a flash of pure brutality.
Leaning in with a cold smirk, Turan makes it clear that he has no intention of showing mercy to ruthless killers. Turan raises his glowing blue-infused hand, channeling the immense water mana of the surrounding ocean.
A grim declaration echoes his deadly intent, cementing his decision to obliterate his foes without holding back. The scene shifts to reveal ancient magical circles as the journey promises deeper and more terrifying mysteries ahead. Shaken by the sudden and overwhelming magic, the remaining pirates cry out in sheer terror as their defenses crumble. The pirate captain screams a futile order to attack as Turan's lethal ice magic relentlessly tears their ship apart. A standard voyage transforms into a deadly slaughterhouse as towering spikes of solid ice suddenly erupt from the churning ocean. The lethal ice spears mercilessly impale the screaming pirate crew, instantly turning their stolen vessel into a floating graveyard.
Raising his glowing hand filled with pure water mana, the silver-haired wizard, Turan, coldly decides to show no mercy to these ruthless killers.
With a grim declaration, he makes it absolutely clear that there is no reason to let any of them survive this day. Surrounded by the mutilated remains of their comrades, the surviving pirates draw their swords, cornered and desperate for a miracle.
The pirate leader desperately tries to rally his terrified men, screaming that they must kill the wizard if they want to survive.
Overcome with primal fear, the pirate swarm launches a chaotic, screaming charge in a last-ditch effort to overwhelm the single warrior. Turan's eye glows with intense magical energy as a colossal torrent of pressurized water surges upward from the sea. Moving like a ghost, the young wizard effortlessly slides past his attackers, wielding a lethal blade of solid ice. The sharp, glowing ice sword crackles with absolute zero temperature, ready to shatter anything it touches. Turan delivers a swift, bloody slash to fell an attacker while seamlessly dodging a heavy axe swinging from behind. Panic spreads like wildfire through the enemy ranks as the pirate commanders desperately scream for their men to keep pressing the attack. Armed with swords and axes, the remaining pirates recklessly trample over the bodies of their fallen allies to reach the intruder. The silver-haired warrior moves with blinding speed, parrying heavy steel blades with his magically reinforced water sword. With a single devastating circular swing, Turan unleashes a crescent of high-pressure water that cuts down multiple pirates at once. Dodging a spear thrust in the blink of an eye, Turan delivers a fatal counterstrike and vaults onto the ship's rigging. The ruthless wizard plunges his ice sword directly into an attacker's chest, completely ignoring another heavy mace coming for his head. Bursting forward in a blue blur, Turan blitzes through the crowded deck, leaving only severed limbs and a trail of blood behind him. A massive wave of highly pressurized water sweeps across the battlefield, mercilessly tearing the remaining pirate forces apart. Suddenly, a pirate manages to sneak up behind Turan, locking him in a tight hold while screaming for the others to strike. A sudden spray of blood erupts as the tables turn, showing that trying to restrain a master wizard is a fatal mistake. The pirate holding Turan screams for his allies to finish him, only to be consumed by sheer panic as he realizes the trap has failed. The pirate captain tries to plunge his dagger into Turan's neck, but gasps in horror as the blade fails to pierce his skin. Smiling coldly at his attacker's utter disbelief, Turan lets his ice magic manifest, impaling the pirate captain from behind with razor-sharp spires. The remaining pirates are instantly swept off their feet by a massive high-pressure water wave that shatters their defenses.
Vaulting gracefully through the air, Turan delivers a spinning aerial slash to slice down the last few survivors.
A devastating, high-speed slash of pure mana tears across the entire deck, leaving absolute silence in its wake.
The agonized screams of the dying pirates echo through the empty sky as the enemy ship is completely neutralized. Standing tall amidst the absolute carnage, the silver-haired youth holds his glowing blue sword over the fallen pirate captain. An aerial view reveals the horrifying aftermath of the battle, with the entire pirate deck drenched in blood and littered with defeated foes.
Back on the main ship, the sound of dropping ropes signals the arrival of Turan's allies, with the captain laughing in disbelief.
Walking onto the blood-soaked deck, the eye-patch-wearing captain jokingly asks Turan if he works as a professional janitor on the side.
Overjoyed by the absolute victory, the hardworking sailors burst into loud cheers, praising their powerful new knight protector. A concerned crewman suggests that the silver-haired warrior see the ship's doctor, but Turan calmly reassures him that he is fine. Flashing a gentle smile, Turan reveals that the massive amount of blood covering his clothes belongs entirely to the pirates. With the pirate vessel secured, the captain proudly announces that his crew has thoroughly searched every single inch of the enemy ship.
Inside the captain's quarters, the eye-patch-wearing leader explains that the captured vessel was a merchant ship stolen from Abichu years ago. Since Turin won the entire battle single-handedly, the captain declares that the ownership rights of the ship belong entirely to him. Caught completely off guard, the young silver-haired wizard curiously asks what he is supposed to do with an entire galleon. The captain lays out his options, warning him that returning it to the original owner would result in months of tedious bureaucracy. Pointing a finger at the map, the captain suggests selling the ship at the North Sea archipelago, where vessels are always in high demand. Looking out at the blood-stained deck, Turin notes that he cannot sail such a massive vessel all by himself. As the sailors throw the pirate bodies overboard, the captain suggests utilizing his crew to manage the ship in exchange for a fair cut.
Smiling warmly, the silver-haired youth holds up 2 fingers and offers a 20% cut of the final profits to the crew.
Thrilled by the incredibly generous offer, the captain laughs heartily and promises to secure the absolute best price for the vessel. Suddenly, the cabin door is slammed open as a panicked sailor rushes inside, screaming about a mermaid discovery. Slamming his hands on the table, the captain leaps up in shock, wondering if they are about to be attacked by sea creatures. The terrified sailor quickly clarifies that the pirates had actually captured a live mermaid and were keeping her prisoner in the hold. The sudden revelation leaves both Turan and the captain in stunned silence as they process the gravity of this discovery. As the crew continues to clean the blood-stained deck, a new deep mystery begins to unfold beneath the waves. How will Turan handle this legendary captive, and what ancient secrets will her rescue unleash upon their voyage?
An unexpected discovery on the conquered pirate ship changes their entire course as the captain asks if the precious captive is inside.
Walking through the ship corridors, a crewman confirms the report, prompting the captain to invite Turan to inspect the captive. Turan agrees to investigate, curiously asking the captain if captured mermaids usually command a high selling price.
Descending the dark wooden stairs, the captain explains that mainland nobles lose their minds over mystical female mermaids.
The captain describes how wealthy, mindless nobles find rare female mermaids absolutely fascinating. The crewman opens the heavy wooden door, directing Turan and the captain inside the secure cell.
Peering into the dim room, Turan stands face to face with a small, tightly bound captive on the floor.
The captain is deeply disappointed to discover that their captive is actually a male merman. The captain sighs, declaring that wealthy mainland buyers have zero interest in a worthless male merman. Enraged by their dismissive words, the captive furiously claims he is Prince Armani of North Estade. The captain remains highly skeptical, questioning if the loud-mouthed captive is merely bluffing to save his skin. The captain mockingly challenges the captive to transform into a fish, which the merman nervously admits he cannot do right now. Armani desperately explains that transformation is impossible while he is bound and away from the sea. Dismissing the captive's excuses as an escape trick, the captain asks Turan how they should handle him. With a cold and menacing expression, Turan ruthlessly decides to execute the worthless captive on the spot. Terribly shaken, the captive panics as the captain notes that releasing him into the sea is too risky. Looming over his prey, the silver-haired wizard channels a terrifying surge of blue water magic. Armani screams in absolute terror as the glowing magical energy draws closer to his face. In a desperate bid for survival, the terrified merman frantically screams that he has never eaten a human. Trembling with fear, the captive tearfully insists he has never even thought of harming a human. Desperate to live, the bound prince pleads for his life, promising to guide them to an ancient treasure. Armani eagerly details that the treasure was left behind by the legendary gods of Freya. An ancient legend of divine power and golden light suddenly shifts the wizard's interest. The promise of a godlike relic changes the course of their journey. A distant, flat, rocky reef shines under the warm glow of the setting sun. The ships finally dock at the harbor as the overjoyed sailors celebrate their safe return to dry land. Looking down at the cheering harbor, the captain asks Turan if he has made a final decision. Turan confirms his plan to retrieve the nearby treasure and return before the night is over. Boarding a small rowboat, Armani complains about being kept in heavy chains despite his royal honor.
Bound in heavy metal cuffs, Armani anxiously seeks reassurance that he will be freed once they find the treasure.
Turan calmly confirms the deal while using his magic to seamlessly glide the boat across the water. Armani huffs, warning Turan not to blame him if the treasure is underwhelming, but Turan tells him to lead. Under the bright full moon, the two continue their quiet, tense journey across the open sea. Stripped of his shirt, Turan dives deep into the dark, silent depths of the ocean. Swimming effortlessly, the silver-haired wizard navigates the blue, bubble-filled water with ease. Sunlight and magic filter through the deep blue ocean, illuminating their hidden destination. Turan discovers a massive fossilized serpent coiled tightly around an ancient stone structure. Close inspection reveals the colossal, ancient stone scales of the petrified sea beast. Standing before the colossal remains, Turan feels the immense scale of the ancient creature. The mysterious stone scales hold the secrets of a forgotten divine era. A lingering aura of ancient power hangs heavily over the submerged ruins. Armani continues to complain, warning Turan that the treasure is only impressive by human standards. The full moon shines brightly through the clouds, casting a pale light over the calm sea. Gliding through the quiet night, the rowboat ripples the dark, shimmering water. Suddenly, Turan's eyes widen in sheer surprise as he spots their true destination.
Turan asks if the island is ahead, and Armani confirms that they have finally arrived.
Stepping onto the boat's edge, Turan prepares to unleash his magic once again.
Holding a glowing blue crystal, the wizard initiates a magic search spell to locate the merfolk. The diagnostic magical scan successfully locks onto multiple marine targets deep beneath the surface. A majestic whale-like sea creature swims calmly through the dark ocean depths. Descending into the cold abyss, a dark and ancient underwater realm reveals itself. Turan feels relieved that they did not arrive at a dangerous merfolk stronghold. Under the bright full moon, waves crash violently against the towering, jagged coastal cliffs. A solitary rowboat gently drifts onto a desolate beach shrouded in misty darkness. Armani nervously guides Turan through the woods, frantically claiming they are close to the treasure.
Armani spots their target and announces they have successfully reached the destination.
Turan looks on with a calm and deeply skeptical expression. In a misty clearing, a glowing magical pool of water shimmers beneath the rocky cliffs. Turan inquires about the depth of the water, and Armani casually reveals it plunges 300 meters. The young wizard turns to stare at his captive in absolute stunned disbelief. A thick, heavy rope is tightly secured around the trunk of a nearby tree.
Armani panics and protests as Turan binds him tightly to the tree to prevent his escape.
The terrified merman pleads for the wizard's survival, fearing he will starve to death if abandoned. Leaving his dark coat behind, Turan coldly warns him to hope for a successful return. Fish swim peacefully beneath the surface as a shadow looms from the edge of the pool. Standing at the water's edge, Turan takes a deep, steadying breath to prepare for his dive. With a violent splash, the silver-haired wizard plunges headfirst into the deep, mystical pool. Bubbles rise through the silent, glowing blue water as he sinks deeper. Activating his magic, Turan scans the dark depths to guide his path. The shirtless wizard glides effortlessly down into the silent, dark blue abyss. Enhanced vision allows Turan to clearly perceive his surroundings in the deep water.
Moving deeper, the wizard navigates a forest of glowing underwater structures.
Turan swims gracefully through the water, scanning his surreal surroundings with intense focus. Suddenly, the silver-haired youth gasps as something massive catches his attention. Beams of pure ethereal light pierce through the deep water, illuminating the lake floor. A colossal, fossilized serpent coiled around ancient stone ruins materializes in the dark water. Turan approaches the gigantic, petrified beast, dwarfed by its immense scale. Up close, the ancient stone scales of the massive serpent shimmer with residual power. A foreboding and heavy aura of ancient magic clings to the submerged cavern ruins. The wizard realizes he has finally located the heart of the legendary ruins. Sitting atop the colossal serpent's petrified head is the statuesque figure of an ancient armored warrior. The massive coiled body of the petrified beast stretches deep into the underwater darkness. Turan's eyes widen in sheer realization as he approaches the ancient, majestic sight. Feeling his breath slip, the wizard struggles to suppress a sudden gasp of shock. Swimming downward, the young wizard closes the distance to the giant serpent and its mysterious rider. An ancient, fully armored knight remains perfectly preserved atop the head of the petrified sea monster. Turan stands in awe before the towering, legendary petrified beast and the silent warrior above. The silver-haired wizard inspects the ancient guardian with analytical precision. A close look reveals the detailed armor of the preserved knight resting on the stone scales. Ancient, cracked rocks form a sturdy foundation beneath the monumental petrified beast. Turan wonders if this perfectly preserved warrior is truly a divine being of Freya. The armored knight's eyes suddenly flare with a terrifying, radiant blue magical light. Turan notes with astonishment that the ancient warrior's physical body remains completely intact. The young wizard spots a valuable glowing golden compass hanging from the ancient knight. The mysterious golden compass glows warmly, pointing toward an unknown, legendary destination. Back on the shore, Armani remains securely tied to the tree under the dark night sky. With a violent splash, Turan bursts through the surface of the pool, gasping for air. Armani frantically asks if the wizard successfully located the ancient relic. Pulling himself to the water's edge, Turan confirms their incredible success. A heavy, knowing look crosses the wizard's face, hinting at the dangerous path that lies ahead. A radiant blue magical flame erupts with raw energy. Bound to the tree, Armanis' ears flare with magical blue light. Turan analyzes the relic, realizing it can sense living energy. Turan casts a spell, shattering the heavy chains holding Armani. Freed from his shackles, the merman prince stares in disbelief. Armani wonders why he is freed, but Turan keeps his promise. Armani tearfully thanks Turan, promising his royal family's eternal gratitude. Turan coldly dismisses his dramatic gratitude and prepares to leave. With a massive splash, Armani dives back into the sea. Under the ocean, Armani unleashes his true royal beast form. Turan realizes the loudmouth merman was actually telling the truth. The crew's massive sailing ship docks at the bustling harbor. Severe whip marks tear across the flesh of a crewman. The wounded crew groans in pain while applying healing salve. An elder sailor violently lashes a whip, demanding total obedience. Turan investigates the commotion as the crewman explains the punishment. The crewmen undergo public whipping for their severe lack of discipline.
The text reveals the crewmen cause a ruckus in Cal.
Turan silently observes the brutal punishment with a cold gaze. The lash reveals a glowing trail of the victim's life force. Turan observes that wounds make active life force visible to him.
The crewman reveals the captain went inland to sell the ship.
Inside a grand tavern, two men discuss a business transaction. Samuel gasps in sudden surprise as someone enters the room. Samuel welcomes Turan, asking if the ship deal is complete.
Samuel introduces the buyer, proposing a payment of gold coins. The captain points out a major issue with the transaction. Turan requests legendary magic tools or holy relics instead of gold.
The captain suggests traveling to Komad to find such relics.
Samuel explains that Komad is ruled by legendary beast tamers.
Turan realizes a talking beast would be a perfect companion.
Under a bright sky, the ship glides across the water. The sailors celebrate their luck after serving a divine lizard.
The lookout screams a warning as dark clouds approach them.
A terrified sailor watches the horizon rapidly darken with dread.
A massive storm rolls in, turning the sky pitch black.
The captain screams for everyone to prepare for the storm.
Towering waves crash violently against the struggling wooden ship.
The elder sailor commands everyone to secure the cargo immediately. The crew desperately struggles to secure the heavy wooden crates. A colossal wave crashes over the deck, tilting the vessel. Sailors scream as they lose their grip and fall helplessly.
A crewman is swept overboard, falling toward the ocean depths. The falling sailor suddenly freezes midair, glowing with blue light.
Turan channels his magic, levitating the falling sailors in cargo.
Turan safely lowers the floating crew back onto the guck. Turan orders the man down, who complies with relief. Turan gestures with his bandaged hands to cast another spell. Magical blue ropes wrap around the mast to secure sails.
The wizard's magic firmly binds all loose cargo in place.
As the storm violently rages on, the crew scrambles in terror to survive the onslaught. Inside the cabin, the cold and exhausted crew members huddle together, shivering in absolute dread. Safe from the rising waves, the grateful crew bows deeply, thanking Turan for saving their lives. Turan scratches his head, checking if anyone is hurt, and is relieved to hear they are fine.
The eye patch captain warmly thanks Turan, though he wonders if they can survive the storm's fury. The captain urges everyone to trust the helmsman, but notes that they must deal with the freezing cold. Under the dim lantern light, the shivering sailors hold onto their thin blankets, freezing in the damp cabin. Observing their miserable state, Turan stares quietly, contemplating his next move. Taking charge of the situation, the wizard commands the freezing sailors to gather closely in a circle. The eye-patched captain panics, warning Turan that lighting a fire on a wooden ship is highly dangerous.
Disregarding the warning, the silver-haired wizard casually snaps his bandaged fingers.
A brilliant, harmless magical flame instantly ignites in the palm of Turan's hand.
He directs the magical heat upward, casting a warm, golden glow throughout the dark wooden cabin.
The sailors gasp in absolute awe, realizing this sophisticated heat magic won't burn the ship.
A wave of comforting heat washes over the frozen sailors, bringing instant relief.
Watching the magic, the captain finally understands the ancient teachings regarding the true role of wizards. The ancient truth dictates that humanity shall serve the mighty wizards who protect them.
Basking in the magical warmth, the crew kneels before the wizard who protects and rules over them.
This marks the legendary beginning of the Shepherd Wizard's grand journey across the dangerous world.
The epic legend of the magical guardian continues as his fame spreads far and wide. Staring at the glowing light, a sailor sighs in pure comfort as the soothing warmth fills the room.
Surrounded by the grateful sailors, Turan stands as a divine protector in the dark, stormy night. The crew fully embraces their duty to serve the compassionate wizard who guards their lives.
The storm eventually passes, revealing Komad, the largest, most bustling desert city in northern Inral.
The ship safely docks at the Seni harbor as laborers begin unloading the heavy cargo.
On the shore, the eye patch captain offers Turan a hefty bag of gold as his hiring fee. The captain insists he accept the reward, explaining that the crew chipped in from the ship's sail.
Turan accepts the bag, promising to treat them to a grand meal when they meet again. As Turan prepares to set off, a loud voice suddenly calls out to him from the ship.
The sailors wave enthusiastically from the deck, shouting their emotional farewells to the legendary wizard.
The eye patch captain and his first mate bow respectfully, bidding farewell to their savior.
Dressed in his dark coat and carrying his pack, Turan steps into the sandy streets of Komad.
The blazing desert sun shines brightly over the massive domes of the ancient city.
The bustling streets of Komad are filled with merchant camels and citizens in traditional desert garb.
Turan walks calmly through the crowded marketplace, blending into the sea of desert travelers.
Suddenly, the young wizard stops in his tracks as a strange sensation catches his attention.
Utilizing his magic vision, he perceives the bright blue life force flames glowing inside the surrounding citizens.
His eyes lock onto an armored desert guard walking ahead of him.
Slipping through the crowd, Turan calls out to get the armored man's attention.
With his eyes glowing a radiant blue, Turan confronts the guard, asking if he serves House Durman.
Instantly recognizing the wizard's overwhelming power, the terrified knight bows deeply in submission.
Turan reveals his name and lineage, demanding an immediate audience with the head of House Durman. The knight guides the wizard to the Grand Palace, a magnificent oasis surrounded by towering palm trees. Sitting inside the opulent palace, Turan relaxes on a luxurious sofa, adjusting his fine white robes. The guard kneels respectfully, remarking that the traditional desert attire suits the young wizard perfectly.
The tattooed lord of the manor, Calderman, sits opposite him and introduces himself.
Lord Calderman narrows his eyes, sensing an unusual and powerful aura from his guest.
Turan silently observes the Lord, his cold gray eyes revealing no fear.
When asked about his lineage, Turan proudly declares his name and his fallen guardian bloodline. Stating his true business, Turan seeks to buy a beast, prompting Call to offer his daughter's guidance. Standing in the palace, a shocking question catches the young silver-haired wizard completely off guard. Calderman's daughter questions his sudden hesitation, but Turan quickly brushes it off as nothing. Turan secretly admits he mistook her for an acquaintance, sparking an intense wave of curiosity. Walking down the corridor, the woman notes his surprisingly vast wealth for a fallen noble.
She wonders if his guardian bloodline drives his mercenary lifestyle, leaving Turan in silent contemplation.
The young wizard deeply ponders whose face the Lord truly saw reflected in his own. Remembering his mother's features, Turan doubts she alone could have triggered the Lord's recognition.
He questions if the Lord recognized his mysterious father, whose face remains entirely unknown.
His deep thoughts are suddenly broken when she announces their arrival at the destination. They officially enter the secure breeding grounds of the powerful House Drimmen. A massive subterranean gallery of beast cages stretches out endlessly before them. Turan turns his head to inspect the spectacular creatures on display.
Massive dark wolves prowl within a carefully reconstructed forest habitat.
Astounded, Turan praises the impressive custom-made ecosystems crafted for each massive beast.
Stopping by a majestic horse, Turan asks about its price, prompting her to explain its premium breeding.
Hearing the outrageous 4,000 gold price tag, Turan's financial confidence completely shatters. He contemplates giving up on a beast, knowing he cannot carry heavy chests of gold alone. Suddenly, a mysterious presence in the shadows makes him halt in his tracks.
A close-up reveals magnificent dark gray feathers rustling in the dim light.
Turan finds himself staring at a massive golden-eyed eagle perched inside a giant cage. The proud, majestic bird glares back at him with an incredibly intense, intelligent gaze. Pointing at the eagle, Turan asks for its price and learns it costs 1,500 gold. Realizing it is a bargain despite draining his savings, Turan asks about its specific magical abilities. Turan stares in disbelief when she simply replies that the creature is smart and flies well. She warns him that the stubborn bird absolutely refuses to obey anyone it deems dumber than itself. The incredibly smug eagle nods in proud agreement with her harsh description. When Turan asks if it understands him, the bird nods, proving its legendary intelligence. Turan calls it slightly ugly, prompting the offended bird to violently shake its head. Amazed by its comprehension, Turan listens as she complains about the bird's refusal to learn. She sighs at its wasted potential, noting it would be priceless if it actually obeyed. When she asks what it wants, the beast ignores her and reaches out towards Turan. The giant golden-eyed eagle steps forward, raising its talons in an unexpected gesture of trust. Cal's daughter gasps in sheer shock at the stubborn beast's sudden change in behavior. Shocked by its forwardness, Turan asks if the majestic bird is choosing him as its master. He wonders aloud what makes him so special to this highly intelligent, proud creature. Turan smiles warmly, asking if it would be willing to learn reading if he buys it. The golden-eyed eagle eagerly nods, sealing an unspoken contract between wizard and beast. Lord Calderman channels a vibrant, swirling purple and pink magical flame to bind them. With a flash of magic, the Lord completes the ritual, successfully bonding the two souls together. The newly freed eagle spreads its massive wings, landing perfectly on Turan's bandaged arm. Lord Calderman urges him to care for the surprisingly obedient beast, and Turan gladly accepts. As they prepare to depart, the Lord suddenly freezes with a look of deep realization. Sensing the sudden shift in the Lord's demeanor, Turan stops and turns back in curiosity. Looking closely at his face, Lord Calderman asks if he has any connection to Talus. Hearing the unfamiliar name, the young wizard is left completely bewildered and confused. The Lord quickly waves off the question, dismissing his own curiosity with a polite gesture. Turan realizes the name Talus is the key to whoever the Lord saw in his face. Seizing the moment, Turan asks if he can pose a question of his own, and the Lord agrees. Turan takes a deep breath, preparing to ask if the Lord knows a woman named Vay. With his new beast perched on his arm, Turan confronts the Lord to uncover the secrets of his past. Holding up a sketch of the mysterious woman, Turan seeks critical answers to his past. Lord Calderman stares at the drawing in tense silence, deep in contemplation. The Lord denies ever seeing the woman, claiming he could never forget such a striking beauty. Accepting the disappointing answer, Turan lowers the paper as his new eagle companion rests on his arm. Turan suddenly commands the majestic bird to take flight, startling the Desert Lord. The silver-haired wizard calmly explains that he wants to test his new companion's obedience now that the deal is finalized. Turan reaches up to catch the diving beast, eager to test their magical bond. The powerful predator lands flawlessly on his forearm, showcasing perfect coordination.
Spreading its massive wings, the giant eagle lifts the young wizard off his feet in a breathtaking display of strength. Turan grins in pure delight, thrilled by his new companion's incredible flying power. The heavy double doors of the banquet hall slowly swing open, revealing a grand gathering.
The estate servants respectfully welcome the young guardian as he enters the grand dining room.
The dark-haired woman welcomes him warmly, and Turan admits the brief flight cleared his mind. She proudly introduces Turan to the assembled noble guests as a powerful wizard from the Carmen region. A heavily scarred warrior looks on with intense suspicion, questioning Turan's origins near Arabian. The dark-haired woman quickly snaps at the guests, warning them not to compare Turan to low-level sellswords.
Introducing himself as Dolph Marin, a warrior of a storied bloodline steps forward to offer a handshake.
Dolph grips Turan's hand with immense force, initiating a silent battle of physical strength.
Turan looks on with a calm expression, easily detecting the warrior's attempt to intimidate him. Impressed by Turan's unwavering grip, the scarred man laughs and praises the guardian's impressive physical resilience.
The elegant woman interrupts a test of strength, demanding to see the famously stubborn eagle instead. Turan explains that the bird is getting some fresh air after studying and offers to summon him.
Heeding his master's call, the magnificent eagle swoops down across the sun-drenched rooftops of the city.
The giant bird glides majestically through the open balcony window, returning to Turan's side.
Intrigued, the elegant woman reaches her hand out to coax the majestic beast over. The proud eagle fiercely rejects her advance, snapping aggressively at her fingers. Humiliated and furious, the woman shrieks at the bird, demanding to know why it refuses to acknowledge her.
As she continues her angry rant, Turan quietly tells his smug pet to refrain from further violence.
The feast begins as the nobles discuss the rising tensions with the western Dark Elf tribes. The conversation shifts to the military campaign against Arabian, led by a commander named Meza. Tensions simmer beneath the surface as the sharp knife slices through the roasted meat.
The cruel guests laugh maliciously, openly wishing for Commander Mesa's assassination during the campaign.
They mock Mesa's appearance, while Turan listens to their vile gossip in heavy silence. The nobles pivot to debating the potential heirs vying to succeed the head of House Sahar. Hearing a familiar name, Turan quietly asks the dark-haired woman to describe this mysterious figure named Talus. She explains that Talus is the househead's younger brother and the powerful second-in-command of Zahar.
The two continue their meal, the weight of the dark secrets beginning to hang heavily over them. Revealing that Talus is the true leader of the house, she turns and directly questions Turan's connection to him.
Stunned by the realization, Turan begins to suspect his mysterious father was a far more influential figure than he ever imagined. With his eyes fixed ahead, the young guardian realizes his quest for the truth has just plunged him into a dangerous game of noble politics. A legendary seal of crossed swords stands as a testament to the dangerous adventures awaiting the young wizard on his quest for truth.